Hello, good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 31st of July. Your headlines. The Gaza Board of Peace hails a historic breakthrough with Hamas agreeing to a disarmament roadmap. President Trump implores Israel to follow suit. Gianni Infantino's FIFA blames the media for the fallout over plans to sell shares in the World Cup, saying it will continue with the consultation process. A runaway fraudster who stole hundreds of thousands from a pensioner is arrested after Sky News found her living in her picturesque Tenerife hideaway. Spain faces a migrant crisis after thousands of people overwhelm authorities to cross into a North African exclave. How a treatment unchanged since Victorian times could be about to see a revolution and hundreds of thousands of lives saved. Hello, good morning. The US President says the Gaza Board of Peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. Donald Trump has made big announcements on Gaza before, including a peace deal and a ceasefire last October, but that hasn't stopped strikes on nearly a daily basis. We've had no official statements from Hamas or Israel yet. But President Trump said today the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. This is a monumental step towards lasting peace and security. This agreement is a critical step forwards towards Gaza finally being governed by a new Palestinian government that will work closely with the Board of Peace to help the Palestinian people. At the same time, Israel will have the security it deserves, with Gaza no longer used as a base for terror attacks. Well, John Sparks is in Jerusalem for us. John, this agreement reached after months of very difficult negotiations, the Gaza Board of Peace say. What are you hearing? Morning.
Well, certainly a series of very big headlines overnight from Donald Trump, aren't they? Historic agreement, he says, the historic agreement on the complete disarmament of Hamas, a major milestone, he calls it. We have to approach this, we have to deal with this with some caution, some skepticism, I think. We know that talks have been going on in Cairo between US officials and some leaders of Hamas, along with the Qataris, the Turks, the Egyptians as well. And those talks have centered around the second phase of the ceasefire deal. The first phase, as you referred to, that has brought about a period of relative peace, although with daily violations, relative peace since last of October. They're now talking about some of those really difficult questions like who's going to govern Gaza and how is it going to be governed? Who's going to rebuild it? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to police it? So Donald Trump's announcement has come up in the context of these talks, and he says that Hamas, this is a key area, right? Trump says that Hamas has agreed to a phased disarmament as part of a 15-point plan. We haven't seen the plan, we haven't seen the details. A couple of key questions here. How long is this disarmament process going to take? We're talking about a couple of weeks, we're talking about a year, we're talking about even longer. It's not clear. And what sort of weapons are we talking about here? Are we talking about heavy weapons? Are we talking about light weapons, the sort of gear, the sort of kit that a police force would use? It's really not clear. No official response, as you say, from either side. A source from Hamas has talked to the Reuters news agency this morning. This source said it was a draft agreement. This source said that heavy weapons would remain under the control of a Palestinian authority. Look, that's not going to be acceptable to the Israelis. They want complete demilitarization of the territory of Gaza. And you've also got the fact that the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, are in control of what? Almost 70% of the territory of Gaza. Hamas are not going to agree to disarmament until that basic fact changes. So you can see huge difficulties here. I mean, I would take this announcement from Trump as sort of aspirational, as broad brush. It's certainly not the end point in these negotiations, that's for sure.
OK, for now, John, thanks very much for the update. Now, FIFA is defending its plan to sell shares in its competitions, including the World Cup, to private investors after European clubs announced a boycott. In a statement, FIFA said this: our planned consultation process was disrupted by incorrect media reports. We will proceed with this consultation process to ensure that each member association has the ability to express its vote based on facts. Nobody is selling football. This is not something FIFA would ever entertain. Everyone has the right to express their opinion and to seek further clarification, but no single entity can claim to represent all 211 member associations around the world. Well, FIFA's statement this morning comes hours after our sports correspondent Rob Harris revealed Gianni Infantino is rapidly losing support to remain president. We'll be speaking to our sports presenter Jackie Boutrell at around 7:45 for more clarity on this. Now, for the first time, mayors across England will be able to keep a share of income tax generated in their area. Prime Minister Andy Burnham says he's making good on his promise to transfer power out of Westminster to local leaders. Let's get more with our political correspondent, Lucy McDade. So give us the headlines and what we're not hearing here also.
Yeah. Very good point there. OK, so firstly, the headlines. Mayors will be given, for the first time in a generation, for the first time, I think, ever, in fact, power over income tax. So instead of all that money going to the Treasury, some of it will be given to local mayors. The idea here being that they can spend it in their local areas. They can spend it on improving public transport, on more jobs, training opportunities, maybe even building more houses. Andy Burnham says it's mayors who know their local areas best. This can help kind of spur economic growth. They will also, I think, from next spring, it's saying here, they'll be given some of business rates revenue as well. Again, that point that mayors can keep the money that's raised in their local area and they can put it back into their area. Andy Burnham has made devolution his big thing, hasn't he? Keir Starmer actually made devolution one of his big things. I think maybe we didn't hear very much about it because we weren't getting these kind of tangible announcements like Andy Burnham is very clearly trying to roll out in his first couple of weeks. Just at the beginning of the week on Monday, I think it was, he spoke about there being a greater parity between university qualifications and technical qualifications. Again, there he was saying that it will be down to local mayors, metro mayors. There are mayors all across the country. And they can kind of tailor skills and job opportunities to what is in their local area. So whether it's AI, advanced manufacturing, the creative sectors. He, of course, before being the MP for Makerfield, then Prime Minister, he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. So where he might be slightly different, devolution isn't a new thing. It was actually the Conservatives that first introduced this idea. He believes that he has got the skills to properly roll this out because he had the experience from Manchester. What isn't included are the areas that don't have metro mayors. Plenty of rural and coastal communities, particularly Dorset, Somerset, Cornwall, they don't have mayors. They won't get this the greatest level of power that Andy Burnham is promising here. And I already know that there are MPs within the Labour Party as well, so not just your Liberal Democrats and your Conservatives who really aren't happy about this. OK, I will be talking more about this this morning, of course, Lucy. But also, while you're here, Diane Abbott, she's been reinstated into the Labour Party. Yeah, she has. So, longest-serving MP, seen by many, mother of the house, an iconic member of Parliament, if you like. But there's been a kind of a row over her within the Labour Party for some time, and it's a little bit confusing, the timeline to this. She's been suspended twice. She's been readmitted to the Labour Party. She's been readmitted with a formal warning. And this one, particularly, is over a tweet in which she referred last year to the Israel Defence Force as the Jewish Defence Force. Now, she last night put a tweet out on social media, I suppose it's X now, isn't it, saying that she'd used wording that conflates the actions of the State of Israel with the Jewish community and was deeply sorry for any hurt caused by that conflation. Now, she's got the whip restored, so she's back into the Labour Party because of an independent internal investigation. They say that there was no political interference. But she also made comments. She was suspended again last year because she repeated comments that she'd made in 2023, which had been incredibly controversial, because what she'd suggested was that people at Jewish, Irish and traveller communities experience prejudice but not racism. She apologised at the time, but last year in an interview, she appeared to stand by those comments and said that she didn't regret making them. In fact, if you look at her social media pages today, those comments are still there, that she stands by them. And it's not clear with regards to that complaint what has happened here. I think it's worth asking Louise Haigh later about that, because, of course, with the political landscape the way it is at the moment, we see increasing anti-Semitic attacks. There will be people, you know, the Board of Deputies of British Jews, for example, has said that he's very concerned by Miss Abbott's reinstatement. We've contacted her to ask for a comment, and we haven't heard back yet. But, of course, she has apologised about those comments with regards to the Israel Defence Force last year.
OK. Lucy, thanks so much. As Lucy said there, we're going to talk about those devolution plans, about Diane Abbott too, later this morning. And we're going to be speaking to, obviously, the Cabinet Office Minister, Louise Haigh, all about that. Now, at least 9 people have reportedly died attempting to cross from Morocco into the Spanish exclave of Ceuta. The army was called in after huge crowds of people crossed the border, overwhelming police. Spanish media reported between 2,000 and 3,000 people have broken into the territory in North Africa, with many of them just swimming across. The city said it was facing a humanitarian and social emergency, and that was becoming more difficult with every passing hour. Here's what some of the migrants crossing over had to say.
We don't have a good life in Morocco.
Don't meet the gun.
We don't have good medicine, and we don't have a good teachers, and it's a bad life in Morocco. That's why we get swimming to here.
Those people, it's come from Spain because it doesn't do that there. No work, no eat. We don't want to go to family there. Anything is difficult and easy, and that's problem because the judge there or something like that.
Well, crossings continued into the night. People were seen swimming across in dangerous conditions. It isn't immediately clear what's prompted so many people to cross into Ceuta all at once. And this morning, the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has threatened to suspend its open border Schengen agreements with Spain. Now, a fugitive fraudster tracked down by Sky News in Tenerife has been flown to the UK and arrested after more than a year on the run. Pamela Gwinnett was sentenced to 6 years in prison after raiding £300,000 from a pensioner's life savings to spend it on luxuries, including Botox. Our correspondent Phoebe Southworth has the details.
It's a tale of greed and cowardice. Pamela Gwinnett, the runaway fraudster who Sky News tracked down to Tenerife earlier this year, is now finally back in the UK after more than a year on the run. When we caught up with Gwinnett at her picturesque apartment block in Los Cristianos in the south of Tenerife earlier this year, we asked her why she had defrauded a vulnerable pensioner, Joan Green, out of £300,000 of her life savings and spent it on Botox treatments, expensive meals, a £22,500 car. Well, last year, a judge gave Pamela Gwinnett a 6-year prison sentence for fraud, but by that time, Gwinnett had already fled to Tenerife and she's been there ever since. Well, last night, we accompanied Greater Manchester police officers as they swooped in to make an arrest here at Manchester Airport. National Crime Agency officers led Gwinnett through the terminal behind us. We could see through the door just behind me. Gwinnett could see we were outside. She put on her sunglasses in what looked like an attempt to shield herself from us. This is how that moment played out. Is it finally time to apologise, Pamela?
And just...
Do you still intend to appeal your conviction and sentence, Pamela?
The cops a bit of space.
Is that a yes, Pamela? You might have been able to see there that when I asked Pamela Gwinnett if she was still intending to appeal her conviction and sentence. There was the faintest of nods that she gave, but that was the only reaction that we got from her. She might very well have a lot on her mind. She firstly will be thinking perhaps about the life she's left behind in Tenerife. We know from neighbours and people who knew her on the island that she was living what can only be described as the life of Riley. She was seen swimming in the pool at the apartment complex where she was living. Neighbours and other people saw her going shopping, having her nails done at the salon. But perhaps more pressing in Pamela Gwinnett's mind will be what happens today at Preston Crown Court, where she is due to appear to face the consequences of absconding last year. It may be that we hear today there is a significant addition to the 6-year prison sentence she already faces, but a huge relief for the family of Joan Green, who are absolutely ecstatic that this woman is now back in the UK and is about to serve a lengthy prison sentence.
Phoebe Southworth there. Now, the search is on for one of the world's most famous mountain climbers, and several others have gone missing after a huge avalanche in Pakistan. Let's get more details on this. Emma Birchley is here. Help us understand what's going on. It sounds quite desperate at the moment.
Yeah, so 10 climbers have gone missing, and it has been reported now that 2 bodies have been found. So we're talking about an expedition onto Broad Peak, so over 8,000 metres high, which is more than 26,000 feet, the Karakoram mountain range. And it was being led by this man, Nirmal Purja, known as Nims Dai, 43 years old, highly experienced, world-renowned. Nepalese, but actually had served in the British Army, and also he'd been a Royal Marine. And he was leading this climb. It's the 12th highest mountain in the world. However, yesterday there was an avalanche. It's reported it was around midday. There was initially some kind of movement, it appeared, on the tracker. It's not clear at the moment whether anyone has survived, but certainly it's looking pretty desperate at the moment. Now, Nims, as he was known, Nims Dai, hugely experienced, and he, in fact, in 2019, climbed 14 of the world's highest peaks, so they're all over 8,000 metres, a huge achievement. He did that in 189 days. He smashed the record at the time by 7 years. He featured in a documentary, so people might have seen him in this Netflix doc, 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. Obviously, this is hugely concerning. It's been described by the Alpine Club of Pakistan, who are following this as deeply concerning. They're working with government officials, and we know that a rescue operation is underway, but it's being hampered by bad weather from the air. That's how they want to do this with the helicopters, but they're certainly been approaching from the ground. But the sign's not too good because reports of 2 bodies having been found.
OK, for now, Emma, thank you. Well, still to come here on Mornings on Sky News. Scientists say human-caused climate change has made the devastating wildfires in France and Spain more likely. We'll have the latest for you from the Gironde region coming up next.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch way, right? We're going to get in. Right. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them, quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe?
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away. Thank you very much. Okay, but
Listen,
I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
That is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Now, scientists say human-caused climate change made the devastating wildfires in France and Spain more likely. They say things like burning fossil fuels made the French blazes twice as likely and the Spanish ones 20 times more likely. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports from the Gironde region in the southwest of France.
Racing through the maritime forests, Europe's response to the wildfires is being tested to the limit. This is a team of Swiss firefighters who've been drafted in to help combat the disaster. Their commander, Nicholas Schumacher, says he's never witnessed anything on this scale before.
This here, where we're driving, is essentially the last containment line that would allow us to stop the fire coming from the right. We need to hold this line because if the fire crossed, it would threaten Cap Ferret.
Europe has mounted one of its largest ever responses, with several countries sending aircraft, equipment and specialist crews. This is no longer being treated as an isolated French emergency.
Whilst the firefighting teams are making progress, no one would describe the blaze as being under control. Now, what this team are doing is they're going around. Embers from the main body of the fire are being spread by the wind and are catching light. And what they're doing here is damping them down and trying to stop them igniting into a much larger fire.
With mega fires becoming more common across Europe, a united continental response will have to become even more coordinated if these types of disaster are not to become even more destructive.
Even in Switzerland, we prepare for that because of the weather condition and all that stuff. So that's why we're here, to gain a little bit of experience. Yeah.
Already, huge swathes of southwest France have been destroyed, scorched by fires that are unprecedented in scale. The disruption has caused mass evacuations. Campsites like this one, which are normally bursting with holidaymakers at this time of year, lie eerily empty. And as the Swiss team gets ready for a change of shift, they say the impact of the fires will be felt for years.
It's depressing, it's just walking around the different places. You don't have here. We can hear the different birds and things, but as soon as you go where it's burnt, there's nothing. No life, no birds, no insects. So it's a zombie land.
Europe's summers are getting hotter as the climate changes. The fear is that what were, until recently, once-in-a-generation disasters will become far more common. How the continent responds will be one of the defining challenges of the years ahead. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Southwest France.
A Ukrainian drone campaign against Crimea's power grid has left hundreds of thousands of people in the Russian-held territory without electricity for days at a time. Tom Cheshire has more.
The front line of the war between Ukraine and Russia tends to be most people's focus. Crimea, the peninsula that Russia seized in 2014, has been getting less attention, but Ukraine is putting it under a lot of pressure. This is what life has become for those living there. Water shortages, fuel rations and blackouts. That is all part of a Ukrainian strike campaign, attacks like these. The aim, to choke the supply lines running through the peninsula to the southern end of the front line in Kherson and hit Russians both at home and on holiday. Sky News data and forensics team has geolocated 92 of these strikes so far in July to see just how much the Ukrainians are hitting and the impact it's having on the population. These are strikes that have been geolocated by the team from drone strike and aftermath videos posted online. And they've got a target. 82% of these strikes are on electricity substations. You can see them here, and these are the power grid lines on which they lie. So what does that all add up to? The effects can be seen in nighttime satellite imagery. This is before the strikes in April. Pay attention here, here, here. And what you're going to see is in July, those lights go out. Now, one major piece of infrastructure that was hit overnight on the 14th of July is the Balaclava thermal power plant outside Sevastopol. According to Russian-appointed governor of that city, it left the town without power. And we can see that the average nighttime light in Crimea, well, look, it is more than half. We've got a small gap in the data there, but you can see there is a big decrease there. Now, why is this so important? Well, Crimea has become an increasingly isolated territory. That's because there has been another target too. This peninsula obviously relies on bridges. These have all been hit too. And the idea is to isolate Crimea even further from the surrounding mainland by destroying those bridges. But the strikes on the substations, the subsequent blackouts, are particularly unique. The high number of substations hit in Crimea in July alone has had a profound impact on civilians. Unusually, Russians are taking to social media to express their discontent. This post on Telegram says that northern Crimea has not had power for 7 days, and there are water shortages in populated areas, and they wanted this post to be shared to spread awareness. The Sky News has spoken to others who needed to remain anonymous. They confirmed widespread power outages and said they were worried about what civilians would do if strikes continued into winter. One source based in Yalta described this attack that occurred overnight on July the 21st. They told Sky News the next day parts of the city were without electricity or running water. So this is a concerted campaign. And let's look at this. This shows all Ukrainian strikes on Crimea since the start of the current all-out war. You can see it's pretty low. It starts to pick up, and then there's that big jump over the last 2 months. Now, when Russia hit Ukrainian energy sites, politicians there accused it of targeting civilians, effectively a war crime. Ukrainian representatives told us the power systems in occupied Crimea are a legitimate military target.
We understand that Russia Federation tried to destroy all of us, but we don't want to destroy people who live in Crimea and civilian people. We need only to destroy military infrastructure.
Ukraine seems to be doing that pretty effectively. Crimea was occupied long before the current war, but its fate may be decided by it too.
Tom Cheshire there. Let's take a look at the weather now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, it's cooler for most and more unsettled, but there's no significant rain expected over England and Wales. Early cloud over East Anglia and the southeast will clear during the morning, leaving southern Britain mostly dry and sunny, but there may be the odd coastal shower. Elsewhere, many places will stay dry with sunny spells, but showers will develop fairly widely, some heavy and thundery. It'll be cool in the north, near average elsewhere. Shetland may see some more general rain later, but expect little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, still to come on Mornings, we'll have all your sport, including it's Back to the Future for England's cricket leading run scorer, Joe Root. More after the break.
show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, eh?
Let's go. Watch way. Right, we're going to get in. Right, get in. Get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away. Thank you very much. Okay, but listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
But that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
An Australian jury has found British rapper and YouTuber Young Philly not guilty of raping a young fan after performing at a nightclub in 2024. Our Sky's correspondent Nicole Johnston joins us now. So just bring us up to speed on what happened in this case, Nicole. Morning.
Well, first of all, let me give you the verdict from the court. They found him not guilty on 3 counts of sexual penetration, not guilty on 2 charges of slapping and choking a woman, but guilty on 2 counts of assault causing bodily harm. And then the jury was unable to come to a verdict on 3 other separate counts of sexual penetration. Now, all of this relates, as you said, back to 2024. Young Philly, who is known as Andreas Felipe Valencia Barrientos, he was performing in Perth in a nightclub and he went back to his hotel room with a fan. Now, the court was told that they had consensual sex, but at some point in the evening, the fan, claimed that it became non-consensual and that it became violent. Now, Barrientos has denied all of this. He has rejected the accusations and he says that they were having a good time, that the vibes were good, but clearly the court, or the jury at least, didn't find that was entirely the case. But the big question now is what will the prosecution do? Because we still have those 3 outstanding cases or charges of sexual penetration that the jury was not able to come to a conclusion on. Anyway, it's going to be another 3 weeks until he is sentenced on the 2 counts that he was found guilty of. But we know that people have been paying pretty close attention to this case in the UK. He is a social media star, a YouTuber. He's also become a rapper. So he is very well known in the UK, slightly less well known here in Australia, but he was on a tour around the country performing when this alleged incident took place.
OK, Nicole, thank you. Now, research on a revolutionary treatment for deadly snake bites is making progress, with scientists working on an oral pill that can be taken to prevent venom from spreading. Ashish Joshi went to visit scientists in Liverpool and Denmark to see how they're creating antibodies in the lab. And just a warning, his report contains graphic images of snake bite wounds.
This is venom from one of the world's deadliest snakes, a saw-scaled viper. Just a tiny amount can trigger catastrophic bleeding, organ failure, and death. Every year, more than 2.5 million people are bitten by venomous snakes. Around 138,000 will die. Hundreds of thousands more are left permanently disabled. For more than a century, the treatment has barely changed. Horses are injected with snake venom, and the antibodies produced by the animal then used to develop antivenom.
It's Victorian medicine.
If you're ready, Paul.
Snakebite is one of the world's most neglected diseases. But here in Liverpool, scientists think they're on the brink of changing that.
It's really in the last 15 years or so that there's been really major changes in how we actually approach treating snakebite.
Inside one of Europe's largest collections of venomous snakes, researchers are studying exactly how different venoms attack the body. Some shut down breathing, others destroy muscle, and some work by stop blood clotting, causing fatal internal bleeding. Understanding these toxins is leading to entirely new treatments.
What we're trying to do really is understand, first of all, venom effects, and then look at how antibodies, immune responses, or drugs can treat those venom effects, ultimately humans, and then how do we deliver those treatments to those humans over time.
The team in Liverpool is developing a simple pill made from existing medicines that can be given to patients where the snake attack takes place. It works by blocking the venom before it causes devastating tissue damage and internal bleeding.
So these are synthetic chemicals, essentially, just like paracetamol. What we're trying to do with research nowadays, whether it be with monoclonal antibodies or nanobodies that are being produced, or small molecule drugs, these can be produced synthetically. So we can make them in the lab, we can make them very consistent.
Some 600 miles away in Copenhagen, another team is tackling the same problem, but from a different direction. Instead of using horses, they're growing their own human-compatible antibodies in the laboratory. The treatment has already shown promising results against 17 of Africa's deadliest snakes.
Our mixture of antibodies worked better than the existing antivenom on the market. It was more effective and it had broader coverage when it came to snake species.
Scaling up production is now the next challenge.
We are producing antivenom. It's something we know can be achieved.
A disease that has been neglected for decades. A treatment that has barely changed in more than 100 years. Now, 2 scientific breakthroughs could finally give hope to millions.
I do believe over the years we could save hundreds of thousands of lives.
Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Time now for your latest sport.
Right, here we are. First day back, I suppose. It kind of feels like, doesn't it? How is the feeling? Because everything feels quite new around here.
Now, of course, first day of pre-season with the full squad outside on the pitch today. And the first team meeting talking about our season ambition and who we want to be. It's been a great day, and of course I'm very excited, yeah.
How does it feel? It feels odd coming here. I haven't been shouted at by Katie McCabe or given a big hug by Beth Mead. There is a different feeling here today.
Yeah, you'll get them at some point, just not around Arsenal. Yeah, of course, they are legends of the club on what they've done for Arsenal, and for me it was a pleasure working with them as well. In both of them there's so much football intelligence, and learned from them, and I think Katie with her leadership, her vocality on the pitch, same with Beth, very energetic, vocal on the pitch. Of course we'll miss that, but yeah, it's a new season and we have a lot of great players coming in, and there will be new dynamics, and we have a lot of leadership in the squad as it stands, and then it's always interesting in the group dynamics, how are these different roles going to be filled with the squad that we have right now, but it looks really, really good.
The decision to sort of transform the squad, to move on from certain players, to kind of maybe get a bit younger, was taken some months ago. Was there any kind of nerves about sort of the process whilst you were going through it, especially at the end of the season when your team was playing well?
Yeah. Nerves, I don't know what word I would use, but you're always, because it's decisions.
Well, still to come here on Mornings on Sky News, we will be discussing the stories making headlines in today's papers with our panellist Becca Hudson.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch, wait, right, we're going to get in. Right, get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Oh my goodness. Whoa, oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw two guys, two bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
But that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, it's cooler for most and more unsettled, but there's no significant rain expected over England and Wales. Early cloud over East Anglia and the southeast will clear during the morning, leaving southern Britain mostly dry and sunny. But there may be the odd coastal shower. Elsewhere, many places will stay dry with sunny spells, but showers will develop fairly widely. Some heavy and thundery. It'll be cool in the north, near average elsewhere. Shetland may see some more general rain a bit later. Little change expected elsewhere. Northern Ireland and southern Britain will be dry almost everywhere tomorrow with long spells of sunshine. Northern Britain will have sunny spells.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, it's time now to see what's making headlines in today's papers in our news review. Pleased to say I'm joined by Editor-in-Chief of the News Movement, Becca Hudson. Becca, great to see you, looking fabulously tanned, I have to say.
Thank you.
We're going to start off today, please, if we may, in the paper, many of the papers covering the wildfires across France and also Spain too. But it's a huge problem that isn't going away anytime soon. Huge effort for first responders, for emergency crews to try and contain this. Meanwhile, wildlife, locals, tourists, all impacted.
I mean, the pictures are absolutely astounding, aren't they, when you think about kind of the staggering size of these infernos that have been raging for weeks across Europe. You know, this is truly on our doorstep. And like you say, firstly, a phenomenal effort from all the emergency services to try and keep people safe. And an interesting line today from the that 84,000 evacuees, which is just, when you think about the size of that many people having to leave their homes, now being encouraged that it's sort of safe for them to go back, but not necessarily going back to what they left. You know, these are, you know, they've been told they've got to go back wearing gloves, you've got to wear masks. You know, you're not going back to your house as you left it. You know, this is incredibly dangerous to go back to, you know, for kind of air quality and soot and everything else. So just the level of destruction that's been caused by these fires, I think is really hard to quantify. I was reading this astounding stat that the fires in France are 4 times the size of Paris, just to sort of quantify what's been happening. And it isn't just France, you know, kind of accounts from everywhere from Romania to Greece to Spain to Germany. And you just sort of think, you know, at what point, what do we need to be confronted by to sort of acknowledge that, you know, this is now not an abnormal occurrence in Europe. This happens every summer. And, you know, that kind of urgent question about what we can do, not only to ensure that our emergency services have got the resources they need, but also what are we going to do to address the kind of climate emergency that we are now, you know, kind of facing, not just in Europe, but also, we were just saying, in Suffolk as well, you know, with 150 hectares now on fire. You know, you just kind of think, at what point do we all sort of wake up to this, you know, really obvious emergency?
Yeah, and then just circling back to what you said about the emergency teams, it's a huge effort, not just within France or within Spain. Crews from across Europe, including Slovakia, Germany, Ukraine also offered to help in this too, which is huge and an indication of how big this really is.
Yeah, a kind of pan-European effort. And yeah, to just reflect that, you know, we're not geared up for dealing with this yet, are we? You know, we need to have really adequate provision in our fire services across the world. You know, and it's fantastic that these countries are all kind of volunteering to support, but you think we need to have kind of serious policy conversations about how we kind of face this next summer, because it doesn't feel like this is a one-off.
The other side to this, though, is this is, what, the 4th heat wave to hit the UK, also France too, and we're not even in August yet.
Yeah. These extraordinary weather events we've completely normalised, which is astounding. And you know, you think it really shouldn't be 40 degrees in London. We're not set up for it, and we aren't really having the conversation about what we can do from a man-made perspective to minimise, you know, global warming and climate change, and what we can all do. Whether it's hosepipe bans, banning barbecues is one of the suggestions. You know, what can we do to sort of minimise the destruction that this fire causes?
OK, we'll be covering much more on those wildfires today. Another story we'll be covering today, it's on the front page of the Daily Mail. They're reporting on Andy Burnham admitting that oil drilling can ease the cost of living. There was some jeopardy over whether this would go forward, and the impact and the speed at which any kind of drilling would impact and ease that cost of living for bills for families. But apparently, according to this reporting, the Prime Minister has hinted a shift from that ideological ban that we saw under Starmer and his administration to Andy Burnham and the new administration moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 24 manifesto promise, wasn't it? You know, no new licences to drill oil in the North Sea, but like you say, you know, this readout sounding like we're actually, you know, that is going to be a really significant shift, and also a big shift away from that net zero agenda of Ed Miliband, who, you know, at one point we were thinking was going to be our new Chancellor. You know, represents a real shift, but, you know, probably it remains quite true to what we're seeing of Burnhamism around this kind of focus of cost of living and sort of on, you know, easing the, you know, alleviating, you know, the pressures on families, especially around heating. So a really interesting shift, and has been massively criticised by the Green lobby. You know, we're just talking about the impact of climate change. They're saying that, you know, a focus on fossil fuels rather than, you know, investment in net zero and renewables could potentially see, you know, that we end up having even more summers like the one we've got. So it's the biting point and tension, isn't it?
It's so interesting also on a side, because we've heard this argument under the Starmer government that any drilling wouldn't really take effect or benefit for 10 years. Now there's a shift on that. The opposition saying, actually, you know, drill, baby, drill, echoes of Donald Trump, who also you know, posted on social media about how the people of Aberdeen would be, what was it? He said, dancing in the street because Andy Burnham was going ahead with drilling. So, well...
Fascinating. Yeah,
there we are.
He's having a good morning, at least.
OK, front page of The Times. Essentially, the headline is, Becca, that French police are criticised as 4 boat migrants die in the Channel. So there were people that were crossing, weren't they? And it was thousands. Yeah. We were speaking about this earlier in the show, and up to 4 they're being criticised for those people dying.
So this is a really interesting sort of, you know, from the Times, from senior Border Force Patrol, who are saying that the sort of French authorities have got a really sort of intermittent approach to when they will or won't sort of stop these boats taking off from northern France. Their defence is that not everyone who works, you know, on the French side has got the permission or the ability to get into the water. You know, as soon as officers who don't have permission to get into the water do, they are then held responsible if there was any deaths or, you know, harm to those migrants. And, you know, the result then being, as you say, you know, 4 people dying on a boat. There's a horrible story in the Times about 3 women that were found on the beach. You know, just, you know, these are... It's obviously incredibly dangerous, this irregular migration crossing. And, you know, on Wednesday alone, 752 migrants in 4 boats. So you just think about the danger of those dinghies. But, you know, the British and French authorities obviously need to cooperate, and sort of both sides are slightly criticising the other, saying, you know, we're doing all we can. It's not always safe on the French side for them to, you know, slash the dinghies, which I know is something that we're very keen that they do. They're saying that increasingly these gangs are armed. And also, is it safe to slash a dinghy if people are then going to get into it to try and cross? So you can understand the argument on both sides, but the reality is that there are people risking their lives every day crossing the Channel, and as the weather gets warmer, we know that it goes up over the summer.
And a huge issue across Europe. You know, we saw migrants heading into Spain from Morocco. Giorgia Meloni also talking about, well, she's concerned about what's happening in the Schengen area and agreements there with Spain. So it's one of those issues that isn't going to go away.
No, and we haven't heard much from Andy Burnham on this, have we? So, you know, I know we're sort of going through this phase of hyper-politics where every morning you're waking up, I'm sure, to a million news alerts about, you know, what he's up to. But, you know, this is a huge issue that you know, that needs resolving. And when you've got people losing their lives, you'd think it would be kind of near the top of the intro.
OK, let's move on to the Daily Telegraph. Should the World Cup ever be up for sale? Many questions being posed across many of the newspapers today. England, essentially, as it stands, will boycott the World Cup alongside other European nations because of the boss of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, is saying, look, there could be a really lucrative deal if we sell off parts of this historic competition. And, you know, it all comes, I was reading, as it's sort of, you know, 60 years on from when we won the World Cup in '66. And so it's very significant that this is where we are. And this contingent of FIFA and how it's viewed around the world. You know, when I've covered World Cups over the years, FIFA has always been under attack from grassroots, you know, people that are playing the beach, no football boots, kids in the favelas in Brazil, for example, in the 2014 World Cup. There was always criticism of FIFA, always has been. But this is another level.
Oh my goodness, the sort of commodification of, you know, the world sport. This you know, this close to, you know, the tournament just finishing 26. You know, it kind of united the world. It's the kind of the one language we all speak.
Many criticism wasn't there obviously about this World Cup. The dehydration breaks, the half-time show. What was this? Was this advertising? And was this the beginning, a seed of that idea of what we're hearing now?
That sort of feels plausible, doesn't it? And obviously, you know, that very close relationship that Infantino has with Trump. You know, he was awarded a peace prize. The red card was, you know, written off, you know, after FIFA after one call, which is kind of useful. But it's just pretty sad, isn't it? And, you know, and the idea that sort of the whole, you know, all European teams would boycott, you know, the forthcoming tournaments, including, you know, the World Cup in 2030, which is going to be held in Europe, is kind of astounding. You know, Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. But, you know, the first kind of casualty of this boycott will be the women's under-20 World Cup, which I just sort of think is desperate desperately sad, and you sort of really hope that if we need this sort of resolved by September, because, you know, the women's game, you know, it has exploded, it's phenomenal, and the idea that they would be the first casualty of the boycott I find a little upsetting. So I really hope that this is resolved, and I'm not sure what would happen to the share price of FIFA if there are no football teams playing.
And I suppose the other question is, how long can he stay in that job now? We'll see.
Yeah.
Also on the Daily Telegraph, you've got a story here about reoffending. It's hit a new high after the release of more than 70,000 convicted criminals under Labour's scheme to combat overcrowding in our ageing prisons.
Yes. Yeah, so over a third of prisoners released have been returned to prison for reoffending. That's up from just over a quarter in 2023. You know, we were about to sort of have another prison release, weren't we? That was sort of scheduled for September. That's now been deferred. But, you know, we get lots of warnings from the prison estate that kind of come November, we will not have enough space, as you say, in our sort of very crumbling sort of prison system. But I'm not hugely surprised because, you know, you're releasing people who have not had time to be rehabilitated. They are released with no infrastructure or support, and you know what they know is criminality. So, clearly the policy is a huge failure, but I don't think we should be surprised that people who haven't had time to be, you know, reformed and rehabilitated go back into the world that, you know, to the life that they know. But again, a really pressing issue for Burnham is what we do to kind of upgrade our prison system to make it kind of fit for purpose.
OK, just wanted to end on a lighter story here. Is it light? I don't know.
No, I don't know if it is.
I just saw the picture of the hedgehog. It looked cute, but it's not. Traffic killing up to 40% of our hedgehogs.
Isn't that terrible?
Who would know?
Who would know? And isn't that terrible? I think everyone loves the sort of, you know, the rare delight of spotting a hedgehog at night, I think, or dusk, is really lovely. I think this is probably the most compelling argument to get us all kind of on our bikes and out of our cars, because, like you say, 40% of our hedgehog population is under threat because of, you know, reckless driving at night. And I think that would be a grave shame for us to lose our beloved hedgehog, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. We could talk forever more, Becca, but we'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thanks so much for your company this morning. Do stay with us. We'll have all of your top stories at the top of the hour, including that Gaza peace deal, how long it will hold, and the details. Stay with us.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Hello, good morning, and thanks for joining us here on Mornings on Sky News. Coming up, we'll be talking about how the US President says the Gaza Board of Peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas. Gianni Infantino's FIFA blames the media for the fallout over plans to sell shares in the World Cup, saying it will continue with the consultation process. A runaway fraudster who stole hundreds of thousands from a pensioner is arrested after Sky News found her living in her picturesque Tenerife hideaway. Spain faces a migrant crisis after thousands of people overwhelm authorities to cross into a North African exclave. Britain is winning the race on lab-grown food, but we see why China is about to take over. Hello, very good morning to you. Now, the US President says the Gaza Board of Peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. Donald Trump has made big announcements on Gaza before, including a peace deal and ceasefire last October, but that hasn't stopped strikes on nearly a daily basis. We've had no official statements from Hamas or Israel yet, but President Trump said this. Today, the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. This is a monumental step towards lasting peace and security. This agreement is a critical step towards Gaza finally being governed by a new Palestinian government that will work closely with the Board of Peace to help the Palestinian people. At the same time, Israel will have the security it deserves, with Gaza no longer used as a base for terror attacks. Let's go live now to John Sparks, who is in Jerusalem for us. John, the big question, I suppose, is what does happen next?
You're right, and we've been asking that for some time, haven't we? These are big, impactful headlines from Donald Trump overnight. Historic agreement, the complete disarmament of Hamas. But as ever with Trump and his announcements, the complexities, the difficulties lurk just behind the headlines. We know that US officials, along with Qataris, Turks, Egyptians, they've been meeting with senior Hamas leaders in Cairo. They're talking about the second phase of the ceasefire agreement. Of course, the first phase in October brought about relative peace in Gaza, although there are violations of that agreement daily, but relative peace nonetheless. So they're now talking about the really tough stuff, like who governs Gaza, who rebuilds it, who pays for it, how is it policed, that sort of stuff. So this has come up in that context. Donald Trump saying that Hamas has agreed to a phased disarmament as part of a 15-point document. But what does that mean? We haven't had sight of the details here. How long is this disarmament process going to take, for example? And what sort of weapons are involved? Are we talking about heavy weapons, light weapons, the sort of things that a police force might use? And I think, importantly, what other sort of things would have to happen in conjunction to make this disarmament process work? It's complex, it's difficult. We've had no official response from either side. A Hamas source speaking to the Reuters news agency this morning said it was a draft agreement and that Hamas wouldn't take any action until Israel had completely withdrawn from the territory of Gaza. And I should tell you that at the moment, Israel Defense Forces occupy about 60 to 70% of Gaza, and Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, says he intends to hold 70% of Gaza. And from an Israeli source this morning, we've heard that they won't accept anything less than a complete demilitarization of Gaza before the process can begin. I presume that to mean these second phase negotiations. So you can see that both sides are still a long way apart, certainly on the surface. So I would see this announcement from Trump as aspirational, as broad brush, but we clearly are a long way from the end point.
John, thank you. Now, FIFA is defending its plan to sell shares in its competitions, including the World Cup, to private investors, after European clubs announced a boycott. So, in a statement, FIFA said this: "Our planned consultation process was disrupted by incorrect media reports. We will proceed with this consultation process to ensure that each member association has the ability to express its vote based on facts. Nobody is selling football. This is not something FIFA would ever entertain. Everyone has the right to express their opinion and to seek further clarification, but no single entity can claim to represent all 211 member associations around the world." Pleased to say Jackie is here with me. How do you view all of this, Jackie? Is this football descending into civil war, or are we sort of hyping it up?
No, I think it's civil war within football. You know, you've got FIFA, and then you've got UEFA, two massively powerful organisations, and they are definitely not seeing head-to-head on this one. We are not selling football. No one is selling football. Well, actually, you are selling 20% of it and getting a private investment firm in to sell that off. That private investment firm happens to belong to Joshua Kushner, who is Jared Kushner's brother, who is the son-in-law of Donald Trump. Thrive Eternal, the company is called. So you are selling a bit of it off. You've put this carrot in front of the 211 members of FIFA saying, OK, you can have 20 million up front now if we go ahead with this, and you'll get loads of money later. And it is a bit like a bribe. And so, you know, to a smaller country like, I don't know, Curacao, you know, you can fund your grassroots football forever with this money. Maybe you will be tempted to vote for that. As for UEFA, the 55 members of UEFA had an emergency meeting yesterday and said, absolutely not, we are not voting for this. And in fact, we're going to boycott all FIFA tournaments, including starting with the Women's World Cup, which is next year, and the playoffs for the Women's World Cup, which are in October. So that will be an immediate impact if they go ahead with it. CONCACAF, another confederation who've got 41 votes, said we are against it. They stopped short of saying we'll boycott, but they are against it. We have heard as well that the Asian Confederation, they're not happy either. So at the minute, just 10 more votes is needed to block this. If CONCACAF go with UEFA and say we are not voting for this, they would then need a further 10 votes from Asia or, you know, from some of the other members. And you've got to remember as well, this was the most successful World Cup that's ever been run. You know, 12 billion was made from this World Cup. People were spending £5,000 on a single ticket to England's semi-final. This was a very, very commercial World Cup with water breaks, i.e. ad breaks, a 30-minute half-time when it's normally 15 minutes in the World Cup final itself. This was a very, very commercial World Cup, and people were raising eyebrows at what was done there. And this is just a step too far.
So interesting. Thank you, Jackie, for bringing us up to date on that. Let's move on now, because fire crews continue to battle a large fire in Suffolk that has burned through at least 150 hectares of land. Let's talk more about this with our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, who is in Westleton. Tom, what are you hearing where you are? How concerned is everyone?
Well, I think the picture has improved quite a bit overnight. Just to illustrate that, the sky behind me, when we were here yesterday afternoon, there was thick brown smoke filling that skyline and sort of blowing south towards the Sizewell nuclear power station. I think things have calmed down a lot. The fire service say they were monitoring the situation overnight. They've identified various trigger points that the fire's still active in, and they're keeping an eye on them, but things are moving in the right direction, and they're feeling a lot more confident compared to their situation yesterday when, I don't know if you saw the pictures that we were sending back, but there was a lot of very active fire in this sort of tinder dry shrub and going up into the sort of pine trees surrounding here. I was just speaking to the guy from the fire service who's in charge of operations today, just this morning. He said really what they're doing today is trying to get ahead of the wind, because what happens, we're on the coast here, and you get onshore and offshore breezes that shift as the land warms up in the morning, the breeze picks up, and that's what reignited the fire that they thought they had under control the night before last, and took it, made it much, much more active. So they're just there to try and keep on top of it. But they seem pretty confident things are moving. But it does illustrate, you know, this was, by Suffolk standards, a very large fire, 150 hectares, you're saying, compared to the ones over in Europe, quite small, but it's drawn in resources from all over. That Suffolk Fire and Rescue were mainly dealing with the incident yesterday, but then they were relieved by crews from Essex, Norfolk, London, Sussex and Yorkshire that have come down to help them manage this blaze. So it gives you an indication of just how much resource that it draws from the emergency services and how much less in the system there then is to respond to other incidents. So it's an interesting dynamic with responding to these fires.
And Tom, while you're there, we were hearing earlier today that a report that human-caused climate change has made the fires in Spain, in France, more devastating. What do you make of that?
That's right. I mean, this is what, I mean, in a way, those studies, it's helpful to be able to try and put numbers to those fires. I think they established that the one in Spain was 20 times more likely because of the impacts of human activity warming our atmosphere, leading to heat waves being that much hotter and affecting dryness, the amount of rain falling over Europe, triggering fires, and in France, twice as likely. But I think, in a way, that's sort of obvious. We know that that's happening. The Earth is getting warmer. When you get heat waves, they will be that much hotter. We've certainly experienced that in the UK this summer. If you think about the record temperatures we saw, normally when temperature records are broken, it's a few tenths of a degree. We broke June's temperature records by 2 degrees. You add that much more heat, you get that much more hotter heat waves, and the established ecology, the plants and things that typically live here, they dry out in those sorts of temperatures. We also get wetter winters as a result of our changing climate here in Western Europe, and that leads to more vegetation, and that's certainly the situation they saw in France and Spain. So these are exactly what climate scientists have been telling us will likely happen, and now we're simply be able to do the numbers on that and see the impacts in front of us. And I think the question is how we adapt to that, how we respond. We can't be diverting fire crews from across the country every single summer to tackle wildfires. It raises questions about how we keep space between humans and nature in instance of wildfire, because we need to concentrate resources on other things. And it raises questions too for things like infrastructure. They had to shut power off to not many homes, 116 properties along the coast here, but that's because the flames were threatening to take down the power lines, so they shut the power off as a precaution. It's now back on to nearly all our homes and things are returning to normal, but it shows the level of disruption and how we have to adapt.
Tom, for now, really appreciate that. Thank you. We've got some breaking news, and it's coming from police in Cyprus. They're saying that National Security Act charges have been authorised against an individual called Rashad Sultanov. He's 44, he's a UK and Azerbaijan national who's arrested in Cyprus in June, accused of conducting hostile surveillance of the RAF Akatiri base and then sharing information with the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. That's according also to the Metropolitan Police and police in Cyprus. That's the latest there. Now, for the first time, mayors across England will be able to keep a share of income tax generated in their area. Prime Minister Andy Burnham says he's making good progress on this, and his promise to transfer power out of Westminster to local leaders. Let's get the latest on this with Lucy. So this is a cornerstone of Andy Burnham's policy. Just bring us the headlines this morning that we're hearing, but also, crucially, I think, what we're not.
Yeah, so it's important to point out, Andy Burnham isn't the first Prime Minister to talk about devolution and pushing power out of Westminster. I think where he says he's different is that he has experience of doing it himself. He was, of course, Mayor of Greater Manchester until very, very recently, before then becoming the MP for Stephen Makerfield, then of course now Prime Minister. So he's not the first person to talk about this, but what he is doing, and he says this morning, is he's making good on his promise to deliver those extra tangible powers. So for the first time ever, I think from spring next year, mayors, metro mayors across the country, where there are metro mayors, and we'll come back to that, will have a share of income tax. We are the most kind of centralised country when it comes to fiscal responsibility. So the Treasury pretty much controls everything at the moment. Metro mayors, Angela Rayner, the new housing secretary, says that mayors have to go kind of cap in hand to the government to say, we want a share of this money for transport or housing or jobs. Well, Andy Burnham is saying, you know your areas the best. You can have some of that money to do with it what you want. We're already seeing different mayors maybe have different plans. Labour mayors most likely will want to improve transport, for example. Conservative mayors may want to offer tax rebates to their constituents. So a number of things here, but Andy Burnham making good on that promise. Of course, the areas that will lose out for the meantime are those without mayors. I mean, I'm thinking off the top of my head, but Dorset, Somerset, Cornwall, for example, they don't have metro mayors at the moment. They are locked out, to use some of their words, of this latest announcement. The government will say today they want more and more areas across the country to kind of come up with these local reorganisation deals so that they can be represented at the highest level. But politically, across different parts of the country, it's really challenging. So this will be, I think, a bit of a headache for Andy Burnham once it develops. OK, Lucy, do stay with us. We just have a clarification on a story that we brought you a few moments ago. What we're hearing is that a man has been arrested in Cyprus in a first Overseas National Security Act investigation. So a man has been arrested in Cyprus, and it's all part of an investigation, as I say, using the National Security Act in relation to alleged offences in overseas territory. So just a clarification on that. The Crown Prosecutor, the CPS, has brought forward these charges and authorised the charges. So just a bit of a clarity on that story, and this is in regard to Rashad Sorvanov, a 44-year-old dual UK and Azerbaijan national. So we'll leave that there for now. Lucy's still with us, and aside from local mayors and more power with the cash that they get given, Lucy, another big story for the Labour Party late last night was that Diane Abbott has been reinstated for the second time. Yeah, lots of people will know who Diane Abbott is. She's on the screen there, you know, longest-serving female MP, currently Mother of the House. Now, she has been suspended twice from the Labour Party. She's been reinstated. She was reinstated yesterday, and she said she's been readmitted and given a formal warning, and she said that's because of a process conducted in line with party rules and approved by the independent review process, making very clear there, the Labour Party has too in their statement, that this is kind of detached from any leadership or political interference. Now, she has posted online apologising for what part of this investigation was about, because what she did was she issued a post online last year in which she referred to the Israeli Defence Forces as the Jewish Defence Forces. So she has said in her post last night, by inadvertently referring to the Israeli Defence Force as the Jewish Defence Force, I used wording that conflates the actions of the State of Israel with the Jewish community. I am deeply sorry for any hurt caused by that conflation and apologise for any hurt caused by it. So she's there apologising for those comments. But there's kind of another element to this, OK? So in 2023, the first time Diane Abbott was suspended, that was because she wrote a kind of an article for the Observer newspaper in which she appeared to suggest that Jewish, Irish, traveller, people from the traveller community experience prejudice that she says was similar to racism, but not quite the same as if you're a black person. Now, it caused a great deal of offence. She was suspended from the Labour Party. Keir Starmer at the time called it anti-Semitism. Remember, you know, this has been a problem for the party for a long time. She was readmitted to the party for the 2024 general election. Last year, in an interview with the BBC, she basically said, I actually stick to those comments that I made. And so she was suspended again. It just so happens a few days before that suspension, she also wrote about the Israeli Defence Forces, comparing them to the Jewish Defence Forces. So there are a number of things here, but I think what's interesting to note is that Diane Abbott hasn't directly referred to those comments which she appeared to stand by last year. comparing racism and saying that Jewish people experience prejudice, not necessarily the same racism. So there are a number of people within the party who feel a little bit uneasy with this. A number of organisations have spoken out. So the Board of Deputies of British Jews say that they feel quite concerned, particularly given the landscape at the moment, the number of anti-Semitic attacks we are seeing. The Jewish Leadership Council, I'll end it here, saying the Prime Minister must now explain how returning the whip to Diane Abbott is consistent with this zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism. We should say we have approached Diane Abbott on those specific comments that she stood by to see what her kind of current stance is.
OK. Lucy, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Now, at least 9 people have reportedly died. This is attempting to cross from Morocco into the Spanish exclave of Ceuta. The army was called in after huge crowds of people crossed the border, overwhelming police. Spanish media report between 2,000 and 3,000 people have broken through into the territory in North Africa, with many of them, as you can see, swimming across. The city said it was facing a humanitarian and social emergency that was becoming more difficult with every passing hour. Here's what some of the migrants crossing over had to say.
We don't have a good life in Morocco. And we don't have good medicine, and we don't have a good teachers, and it's a bad life in Morocco. That's why we get swimming to here.
Those people, it's come from Spain because it doesn't do that there. No work, no eat. We don't want to go to family there. Anything is difficult and easy, and that's problem because the judge there or something like that.
Well, the crossings continued into the night. People were seen swimming across in dangerous conditions. It isn't immediately clear what's prompted so many people to cross into Ceuta all at once. The Italian Prime Minister this morning, that's Giorgia Meloni, she's threatened to suspend its open border Schengen agreement with Spain. We'll keep a watch on that story for you. Now, a fraudster tracked down by Sky News in Tenerife has been flown to the UK and arrested after more than a year on the run. Pamela Gwinnett was sentenced to 6 years in prison after raiding £300,000 from a pensioner's life savings to spend it on luxuries, including Botox. Our correspondent Phoebe Southworth has the details.
It's a tale of greed and cowardice. Pamela Gwinnett, the runaway fraudster who Sky News tracked down to Tenerife earlier this year, is now finally back in the UK after more than a year on the run. When we caught up with Gwinnett at her picturesque apartment block in Los Cristianos in the south of Tenerife earlier this year, we asked her why she had defrauded a vulnerable pensioner, Joan Green, out of £300,000 of her life savings and spent it on Botox treatments, expensive meals, a £22,500 car. Well, last year, a judge gave Pamela Gwinnett a 6-year prison sentence for fraud, but by that time, Gwinnett had already fled to Tenerife and she's been there ever since. Well, last night, we accompanied Greater Manchester police officers as they swooped in to make an arrest here at Manchester Airport. National Crime Agency officers led Gwinnett through the terminal behind us. We could see through the door just behind me. Gwinnett could see we were outside. She put on her sunglasses in what looked like an attempt to shield herself from us. This is how that moment played out. Is it finally time to apologise, Pamela?
Do
you still intend to appeal your conviction and sentence, Pamela?
The cops a bit of space.
Is that a yes, Pamela? You might have been able to see there that when I asked Pamela Gwinnett if she was still intending to appeal her conviction and sentence, there was the faintest of nods that she gave, but that was the only reaction that we got from her. She might very well have a lot on her mind. She firstly will be thinking perhaps about the life she's left behind in Tenerife. We know from neighbours and people who knew her on the island that she was living what can only be described as the life of Riley. She was seen swimming in the pool at the apartment complex where she was living. Neighbours and other people saw her going shopping, having her nails done at the salon. But perhaps more pressing in Pamela Gwinnett's mind will be what happens today at Preston Crown Court, where she is due to appear to face the consequences of absconding last year. It may be that we hear today, there is a significant addition to the 6-year prison sentence she already faces, but a huge relief for the family of Joan Green, who are absolutely ecstatic that this woman is now back in the UK and is about to serve a lengthy prison sentence.
Phoebe Southworth reporting there. We're heading for a break now here on Mornings, but when we return, we'll be speaking to the government and we'll be speaking to Louise Hay. Stay with us. Now, an Australian jury has found British rapper and YouTuber Young Philly not guilty of raping a young fan after performing at a nightclub in 2024. Nicole Johnston has more.
Well, let me give you the verdict from the court. They found him not guilty on 3 counts of sexual penetration, not guilty on 2 charges of slapping and choking a woman, but guilty on 2 counts of assault causing bodily harm. And then the jury was unable to come to a verdict on 3 other separate counts of sexual penetration. Now, all of this relates, as you said, back to 2024. Young Philly, who is known as Andreas Felipe Valencia Barrientos, he was performing in Perth in a nightclub and he went back to his hotel room with a fan. Now, the court was told that they had consensual sex, but at some point in the evening, the fan, claimed that it became non-consensual and that it became violent. Now, Barrientos has denied all of this. He has rejected the accusations and he says that they were having a good time, that the vibes were good. But clearly, the court or the jury at least, didn't find that was entirely the case. But the big question now is, what will the prosecution do? Because we still have those 3 outstanding cases or charges of sexual penetration that the jury was not able to come to a conclusion on. Anyway, it's going to be another 3 weeks until he is sentenced on the 2 counts that he was found guilty of. But we know that people have been paying pretty close attention to this case in the UK. He is a social media star, a YouTuber. He's also become a rapper. So he is very well known in the UK, slightly less well known here in Australia. But he was on a tour around the country performing when this alleged incident took place.
Nicole Johnston there. Now the search is on for one of the world's most famous mountaineer climbers and several others who have gone missing after a huge avalanche in Pakistan. Emma Birchley's been covering the story for us. What are you hearing, Emma?
So this is a fast-moving story as this rescue operation continues. The avalanche happened at around midday yesterday on Broad Peak. It's the 12th highest mountain in the world, over 8,000 metres high in northern Pakistan. And this expedition, led by Nirmal Purja, known as Nims Dai, 43 years old, world-renowned. Now, he was leading this expedition of 10 climbers, including himself, 6 from Nepal, 1 from Oman, China, Pakistan and the US. And what we've had confirmed now from the president of the Alpine Club of Pakistan is that 4 bodies have been found, and 2 of them have been identified. One is a woman from Oman, and then also a man from Nepal, not Nims. Helicopters now have joined the search, so those bodies were found by ground teams, but helicopters have now been able to join the search. Drones are being used too. Now, people might have heard of Nims Dai because he was the first person to, or the fastest person to summit the 14 highest peaks in the world, each of them over 8,000 metres high. He did that in 2019 in just 189 days, so just over 6 months, beat the record by 7 years. And he featured in a Netflix documentary as a result called 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. But he also had has ties with Britain in that he served with the British Army and also the Royal Marines. So they're hoping that there will be some good news, but obviously as time goes on, the chances of anyone surviving reduces, and already, very sadly, we know 4 people have been confirmed to have died.
OK. Emma, thanks so much for the update. Now, when the temperature rises, like it has recently, so too does the risk of swimmers drowning as they try to cool off. Now, following a surge in water-related tragedies this summer, a national strategy has been launched to address what's being described as a public health disaster. I'm joined now by the chairman of the National Water Safety Forum, Professor Mike Tipton. Very good morning to you, Professor. I mean, it feels barely that a week goes by where we hear about one of these stories. I mean, that's just how it feels. But what are the numbers actually saying that you're seeing? A very good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Leah. Yeah, very sadly, even on a sort of average year, we would lose about 282 people to drowning over the course of the year. That's 1 person every 31 hours. During the summer months, it goes to 1 person every 20 hours. So there has been an increase this year, particularly because of the heat waves. We know that once the air temperature gets above 25 degrees Celsius, people return to bodies of water. And if that water's below about 20 degrees Celsius, then they can experience some very hazardous responses when they first go into water. So it's that combination of high air temperatures, particularly occurring early in the year when the water temperatures are still very low.
And that's what's really quite interesting. That number, 282 people, Professor, it feels like a huge number. It is a huge number. Each individual person there lost their lives. And you're calling it a public health disaster. You've also pointed out that it takes out more lives than fires, flooding or knife crime. Why do you think that it often goes below the radar in the public conversation?
You know, the honest truth is I don't really know, but it does. And the sad thing about it, of course, is that we know that the average age of those that die is around about 36 years of age. And the people that are most at risk are adolescent and young men. And so that equates to about 8,000 years of life lost every year in the UK, because the people that are dying are, you know, pretty young. And it is a public health disaster, and it does stay below the radar. And maybe because it is so common. I mean, the media have very much brought it to our attentions over the last couple of months because of the large number of deaths we had in one particular week at the end of May. But generally, you'll find these deaths reported in local newspapers, but they don't reach the national consciousness.
And is it purely about the unusual long, hot spell that we've had and that we've been seeing? Or do you think there's something else going on? Do you think it goes back to even, you know, the classroom and around swimming lessons, not just in the pool, but how you swim in open water?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, swimming lessons are really important that people have that skill, but that's just part of water competency. I mean, there are many other things to know. For example, what to do if you get into trouble, float to live. When you first go into cold water, you'll be gasping, hyperventilating, and you have to suppress the urge to swim about, you know, thrash around, wave your arms, and just turn on your back and float until you get your breathing back under control. Then you've survived the part of an immersion that kills around about 60% of those who go into water. If you see somebody else in trouble, phone, float, throw, phone the emergency services. The sooner they're there, the more likely that there'll be a good outcome. Tell the person in the water to float, and if you can give them something to help them float, do so. These are simple behavioural messages that, you know, once learned, I would regard as a lesson for life.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is that often the people that lose their lives in water hadn't intentionally meant to go in for a swim. They were just walking along the beach. What do you think is happening here, and the message that we need to get out to people about how they operate around our lakes, our seas and coastline?
Yes, you're absolutely right. 42% of those that die in cold water each year had no intention of going in the water, which is why we, with groups like the RNLI, the RLSS, Surf Lifesaving, came up with the Float to Live message, because you have to tell people what to do when they're in the water. So that's really important. And the other thing that's worth noting is that 57% of those that die in inland waterways. And so we need to think long and hard about how we can keep people safe on the long stretches of inland waterways we have. And evaluate things like signage and public rescue equipment. But people need to know that when they're near water, this is a potential hazard. It may look nice, but of course you can't see temperature and you can't see underwater hazards.
OK, Professor Tipton, we'll leave it there. Really interesting and important conversation to have.
Thank you.
Just some breaking news to bring you. We're hearing that BP is launching a process to market its North Sea business for a potential sale. They say the decision forms part of BP's ongoing review, and it reflects its disciplined approach to capital allocation. That's what they say, all in service of creating a simpler, stronger and more valuable company. They, of course, have 5 hubs in the North Sea, employ thousands of people there. And this all comes, the backdrop of this is Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, saying there needs to be a pragmatic view when it comes to North Sea drilling. We've also spoken a lot about Donald Trump and what he's said, saying that the people of Aberdeen should dance in the streets. News that he potentially knew about drilling and Andy Burnham's plans there. The Chief Executive is essentially saying that the UK has been our home for more than 100 years and will continue to play an important role in our future. We're proud of the jobs we create, that's really key, and the contribution we make to the UK economy and to work we do to keep energy flowing every day. So just news there that BP is launching a process to market its North Sea business for potential sale. Now, lab-grown food could be sold in the UK as early as next year. British scientists have been leading the way in experiments, but the competition is fierce, as Victoria Seabrook explains.
There's a global race to make the foods of the future, foods that won't be grown in fields, but which will be made in a lab like this one.
As extreme weather and conflict disrupt the flow of food and fertiliser, alternatives produced in a lab could offer a huge prize. They'd require far less land and water and could be made anywhere in the world. Sky News was given exclusive access to 2 new products entering public trials at Oxford Brookes University: cocoa butter and palm oil substitutes made using yeast, much like yeast is used to brew beer. The UK leads in this science, but soaring energy costs threaten to push these innovators abroad.
We're paying some of the highest fees across Europe, so we also look at energy and where we might be able to go for that. For example, I think Sweden and Finland are considerably lower on the energy costs. So it's a balance of feedstock access, energy costs and regulations for us in terms of where we end up.
But how do the products stand up to the taste test?
Looks like a chip, tastes like a chip. To be honest, it's hard really to tell much difference between them. So it would be interesting to know which one contained the alternative oil, or maybe 2 of them.
But the competition to develop these novel foods is heating up as China enters the fray, industrialising at pace in its quest for food security.
China is looking to scale, and we know from what we've seen in solar and EV that they can scale remarkably quickly. So we believe that if the UK doesn't act, that there is a material risk that, despite being leading in the science, that we again aren't able to build out our own domestic industries. However, I think there's also an opportunity in China scaling if it brings down the cost curves faster.
The government says it's trying to bring down energy prices and fast-track approvals of novel foods. If it doesn't, Britain's head start may go to waste. Victoria Seabrook, Sky News.
Now, a woman with advanced ovarian cancer has become the first patient in the world to be treated with a highly innovative clinical trial. Tracy Tomlinson, who has already beaten the odds in staying alive, essentially, was given the drug at the Christie NHS Foundation Trust in Manchester. It's part of a clinical trial evaluating a new type of treatment for many different types of cancer. Now, the therapy will be tested on people with ovarian cancer, with lung cancer too, and researchers hope it will shape the future for treatments. Well, I'm pleased to say Tracy joins us now. Really great to see you this morning, and really great to hear the positive outlook for your story, Tracy. Can you take us back to the very beginning? What was it that made you feel like something was wrong?
Basically, in the roundabout September 2020, I felt like I had a water infection. Having been diagnosed as perimenopausal, it wasn't anything really more than that. It was just what I felt was a water infection, and I went to the doctor and he gave me some antibiotics, and it didn't cure it. It didn't seem to resolve it. So when I went back to the doctor, he basically said, we need to have a blood test. And it was then on the blood test that there was something that didn't just quite look right. And I was referred to the hospital for tests. And I was told the week before Christmas in 2020 that I had stage 3C ovarian cancer.
And this was just 2 days before your birthday, wasn't it? What was going through your mind at that stage?
I was absolutely devastated. And the first thing that you think is, oh, I'm going to die. It was just absolutely awful, that meeting. After that, it was the meeting just, I could see the doctor's mouth moving. I just couldn't see what he was saying, really, to be fair.
Goodness.
It just all went in a blur, and I just thought, this can't be real. They must have got my results mixed up with someone else, because I didn't really think that I was a candidate to have cancer. So it was a tremendous shock.
And it's been more than 5 years now, Tracy. So there's surgery, there's chemotherapy, there's the cancer coming back, more than once, actually. How have you kept going through all that time?
Well, I'm just trying to... I mean, you can't control the cancer. No matter what you do, you can't control the cancer. But what you can control is how you deal with the news, how you deal with the ups and downs, trying to be a bit more healthier, trying to eat healthier, and just trying to, from somewhere, remain very, very positive. Every day I wake up is a bonus in my book. And I mean, some days I am not very positive at all, and I feel quite, quite down with the results and the news and things like that. But I mean, I've had counselling. The Oldham Cancer Support Centre have been absolutely fabulous with me, providing me with therapy and complementary therapies as well. My husband has been an
Tracy, you're the first person in the world to actually have this treatment, aren't you? Help us best understand, from what you know, what that's been like for you.
I was advised by my oncology team that basically every time they were to give me more chemotherapy, that chemotherapy may be less effective. So I did feel that going down a trial route and seeing if there was anything that would be available for me was an option. It's been, I wouldn't say it's been a difficult decision to make. It was an obvious decision for me to make, to be fair. And I've always felt throughout my journey that I've wanted to make a difference. And if you can't make a difference being the first person in the world with a trial, then where can you make a difference?
Tracy, it's Jackie here. Morning to you, well done. I just wanted, I'm a cancer patient as well myself, and I just wanted to know if you feel like a bit of a miracle, like a walking miracle, and does it make you look at your life differently now?
I think the cancer diagnosis has made me look at life differently, full stop. The things that you take for granted, the people that you take for granted, has changed, and I feel like I'm a different person. And I think that's, when I say I feel like I'm a different person, I think that's been an advantage. I'm more positive. I'm just completely different. I don't think at this stage that I feel like I'm a walking miracle. I feel that my body stood me in good stead to take on this treatment. At the moment, we don't know what the results are, whether they are going to be a little bit of difference or a massive bit of difference. We don't know. So at the moment, I'm sort of trying to rein in a little bit of the excitement over what the results are going to be.
Yeah, well, that's completely understandable. Tracy, you are an inspiration to so many watching this morning, and we really appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is important to have that conversation, isn't it? Like the realities of what... You'll know this more than most, Jackie, the realities of living with something like that.
Well, I feel happy that she's got an option, because I think it's always good to have an option, and she probably thought she didn't have any, and she's now got an option, so that's really important and great for her. But I just always feel sad when people get diagnosed, because their old life kind of goes. The way you view life is very different, and it's sort of... Before, like, you're walking around thinking you're kind of indestructible. Then when you get a cancer diagnosis, you realise pretty quick that no one's indestructible. And it's just that sort of switch. you know, it could get me any time sort of feeling. It's not very nice to walk around with.
It puts everything into perspective. Stay with us. We're going to talk sport in a moment, but we're going to throw to the weather now.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
It's cooler for most and more unsettled, but there's no significant rain expected over England and Wales. Early cloud over East Anglia and the southeast will clear during the morning, leaving southern Britain mostly dry and sunny, but there may be the odd coastal shower. Elsewhere, many places will stay dry with sunny spells, but showers will develop widely, some thundery and heavy, and it'll be cool in the north, near average elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Yeah, Jackie continues to be with us because we're going to discuss all of the sporting issues this morning, but also...
Backlash yesterday, massive backlash from UEFA. What did FIFA say overnight? We'll tell you.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch, wait. Right, we're going to get in. Right, get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Oh my goodness. Whoa, oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera, turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
That is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
So Jackie's here with all the sport. So big question this morning, is the World Cup for sale?
Well, FIFA said not, overnight. We're not selling football. And UEFA was saying, well, you're trying to sell a little bit of it and we don't like it and we are going to boycott all your events. So just drop this plan and we're all good. FIFA said overnight they're going to press ahead with it and see where they go. Although it's hard to see how you sell it without any of the European nations. All of the big stars are in Europe and Brazil. CONCACAF, which is the Brazilian Confederation, they're against it also. Argentina, CONCACAF, they're against it also. Who are you? What are you selling? If no one's in it, what are you selling? Anyway, I'm just going to leave that there because we're going to talk about that more at the top of the hour. What I say yesterday, though, Newcastle, the news that Eddie Howe is leaving.
I feel so sorry for Eddie Howe.
No, don't feel sorry for him. I mean, he's walking away, you know, probably a very rich man. But I know what you mean. He's developed a team, he's developed players, he's got some really good players to a very good level, and then they get sold from under his feet and he's got to start again, and perhaps he just doesn't have the energy for another 5-year cycle at Newcastle. So he's walked away. We understand that Matthias Jaissler, who's coming from the Saudi Pro League, from Al Ahly, before that was in the Austrian League, very young, very well thought of, never played or managed in the Premier League before, so a baptism of fire and maybe a bit of a risk. We're still hearing the rumours that Bruno Guimaraes, the Newcastle captain, is being strongly linked with Arsenal. So having lost Gordon, having lost Tonali, Isak last season, maybe Eddie Howe just thought, I'm done with this for now. You've taken the best of me. Goodbye. West Ham, Amanda Staveley, who was very much involved in Newcastle and the takeover by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. She's now wanting to be buying a stake in West Ham. The latest was she was trying to raise the funds to buy a 25% stake in the club, which Vanessa Gold from the Gold family would be selling. We understand now that she has gathered the funds. So interesting times ahead if you're a West Ham fan. I know so many are so disgruntled and sad after they were relegated and just think the club's a mess and needs reorganising. But that is an interesting moment for them. And we should mention as well, Scottish football returns tonight. The Football League is back. Dundee United against Rangers. Why this is interesting, Derek McInnes now manages Rangers. He did manage Hearts. It was the greatest season, I would say, the greatest title race they've had in a very long time last year. And he was in charge of Hearts. He's now in charge of Rangers, as is Lawrence Shanklin, moving from Hearts to Rangers. All starts tonight.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Jackie. More at the top of the hour.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Hello, good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Friday, the 31st of July. I'm Leah Belletto. Here are your headlines. The Gaza Board of Peace hails a historic breakthrough, with Hamas agreeing to a disarmament roadmap. President Trump implores Israel to follow suit. Gianni Infantino's FIFA blames the media for the fallout over plans to sell shares in the World Cup, saying it will continue with the consultation process. A runaway fraudster who stole hundreds of thousands from a pensioner is arrested after Sky News found her living in her picturesque Tenerife hideaway. Spain faces a migrant crisis after thousands of people overwhelm authorities to cross into a North African exclave. And one of the world's most famous climbers and a star of a Netflix documentary is among a group of people missing after an avalanche in Pakistan. Good morning. The US president says the Gaza Board of Peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. Donald Trump has made big announcements on Gaza before, including a peace deal and a ceasefire last October, but that hasn't stopped strikes on nearly a daily basis. We've had no official statements from Hamas or Israel yet. And President Trump said today the Board of Peace reach a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. This is a monumental step towards lasting peace and security. This agreement is a critical step towards Gaza finally being governed by a new Palestinian government that will work closely with the Board of Peace to help the Palestinian people. At the same time, Israel will have the security it deserves, with Gaza no longer used as a base for terror attacks. Let's talk to John Sparks live now from Jerusalem. John, we have heard similar announcements from Donald Trump before. What are the next steps?
I think they are unclear. I mean, it's a very big headline, isn't it? It's a big, bombastic headline, historic agreement on the complete disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. I think, as often with Trump's announcements, the very real complexities, the very real difficulties, they lurk just behind the headlines. Let me tell you a bit about the context here. You have US officials, along with mediators from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, talking to senior leaders from Hamas in Cairo at the moment. And they're talking about the second phase of the ceasefire agreement, this agreement that was struck last October that has brought a semblance of peace, a ceasefire in name certainly to Gaza, although there are near daily violations. So they're now talking about some of those really thorny questions, like who's going to govern Gaza, who's going to rebuild it, who's going to pay for it, how is it going to be policed. But a key part of that is around the disarmament of Hamas, which still ultimately controls the territory. And we've got Trump saying we've got a phased disarmament agreed by Hamas. But what about the details here? I mean, how long is this process going to take? Are we talking about a couple of weeks? Are we talking about a year or more? We don't know. Other details, like what do they do with the weapons? Where are they going to be held? Again, we don't have the details. I mean, certainly the Israelis are going to want the heavy weaponry to be completely destroyed. And then I think probably most importantly, what happens in conjunction with this disarmament? Because it's going to be a complicated process. For example, Hamas are going to want the Israelis to withdraw completely from the territory of Gaza if they begin the process of disarmament, and the Israelis aren't going to want to do that. Reaction, nothing official. A Hamas source quoted this morning saying it's a draft agreement. They wouldn't take any action until Israel has completely withdrawn from the territory of Gaza. And I should tell you that the Israel Defense Forces currently hold about 60 or 70% of Gaza. On the Israeli side, they're going to be skeptical, right? I think that's clear. They're going to be skeptical that Hamas will disarm, and they're going to want the complete demilitarization of Gaza before they really engage in this process. So I think, ultimately you've got both sides. There's still a long way apart. Yeah, Trump knows that. I think his announcement is probably more aspirational than actual. It's more broad brush. I think we're still a long way from the final point in this process.
OK, for now, John, good to talk. Thank you. Now, FIFA is defending its plan to sell shares in its competitions, including the World Cup, to private investors after European clubs announced a boycott. In a statement from FIFA, they said this: our planned consultation process was disrupted by incorrect media reports. We will proceed with this consultation process to ensure that each member association has the ability to express its vote based on facts. Nobody is selling football. This is not something FIFA would ever entertain. Everyone has the right to express their opposition and seek further clarification, but no single entity can claim to represent all 211 member associations around the world. So who's wrong, who's right? Jack is here to discuss this. So he's essentially blaming us, the media, for incorrect accounts.
Always blame the media. But I think the accounts that have come out and the reports that came out when the story broke, they are correct. They have spoken to all of the 211 member associations and have dangled a figure in front of them and said, if you sign this by September the 19th, you'll get even more money. So that is quite a carrot for some of the, the smaller nations who would like to develop football more in their country. But, UEFA said, you're selling it. He said, well, we're not selling it. Well, you are selling a little bit of it. You're selling 20% of it. You are going to give it to private investors. A private investment firm is going to organise this. The company is Thrive Eternal. Thrive Eternal is owned by Joshua Kushner, Jared Kushner's brother, who is Trump's son-in-law. So all of it just kind of looks a bit fishy. UEFA have said no, all 55 members said no, and we will boycott.
That would mean England.
We will boycott the World Cup. We will boycott all of your competitions. Yes, it means England. The FA said we stand shoulder to shoulder with our European colleagues. They have just said flat out no, all of them. And a boycott is what they've said we're going to do. CONCACAF, the South American Confederation, so like the UEFA of, South America and Central America, so Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, they have also said, we don't like this. They've all said that we'll vote against it. They stopped short of a boycott, but still that would be 41 votes against this plan, which they're calling FIFA's forward enterprise. What's, I think, extraordinary timing is it's straight off the back of a World Cup that's been the most lucrative World Cup that FIFA have ever had. They've raised $12 billion from that World Cup. And if you bear in mind that the last World Cup in Qatar 4 years ago raised between $7 and $7.5 billion, that is a massive increase. It's already become extremely commercial. That is a lot of money to share out amongst all the member associations. FIFA are not a poor organisation. They're a very rich organisation. And a lot of people say, why do you need this? Why do you need private investors? And what people are worried about is that you'll have more things like drinks breaks, which have basically become ad breaks. You will have, instead of having half time for 15 minutes, like in the final of the World Cup, you will have a half hour in which you can cram in more ad breaks. Other things will happen, like red cards will be overturned. Well, hang on a minute, that happened already because Donald Trump intervened and a red card for an American player was overturned. So lots of things that happened in the World Cup people didn't like, and the feeling is as it becomes more corporate, more and more things will creep in that will control football rather than football controlling itself.
Yeah, so much more to discuss on this story. You'll be back with the sport a little later, Jackie. Thank you so much for that. Elsewhere, fire crews continue to battle a large fire in Suffolk that's burned through at least 150 hectares of land. Let's go live now to our science and technology editor, Tom Clark. So, the pictures that we've seen in the last few days, overnight, Tom, have been so dramatic. What's the story where you are this morning?
Well, I was just thinking, Leah, I hope the firefighters will be getting their hydration breaks because they were very busy yesterday, and you saw some of the pictures that we were bringing back from here. We had very active fires, multiple areas of this heathland. It's behind the trees behind me. but things definitely seem to be heading in the right direction for the fire service. All that hard work seems to have paid off. There was thick smoke behind me when we were up here yesterday. It's pretty much gone. I think the situation on the ground, it's smouldering. They've got eyes on various hot spots, and the fire service telling me this morning they're just keeping an eye on the wind, because that's what really brought things back yesterday. Here on the coast, you get shifting sea breezes as the land warms up particularly. I felt the breeze stiffening actually since I spoke in the programme an hour ago. So they're just keeping an eye on that, but they seem pretty comfortable that they're on top of this. They haven't said that the fire is under control yet, but they're saying everything's heading in the right direction. So looking pretty positive. Down at the village hall in Westleton, about a mile down the road from me, it turns out no one had to stay the night on the camp beds they put up there because of the 50 or so people evacuated from caravan parks and cottages along the coast. They managed to put them up. Local residents have put them up nearby, so apparently the response from the local community here has been fantastic, and everyone who was made temporarily homeless by this fire has been accommodated and looked after. So things looking pretty positive here, despite all the drama and a very active fire yesterday.
And Tom, while you're there, we've heard that human-caused climate change has made those devastating wildfires across France and Spain even more likely.
Yeah, and in a way that sort of, it makes logical sense, doesn't it? We're getting hotter temperatures, we're getting drier summers, and when we get heat waves, they're that much hotter. If you think about the June temperature records we've had in the UK last month, they weren't broken as records normally are in the world of meteorology by a few tenths of a degree. They were broken by 2 degrees, in some cases more, and that gives you a sense of just how much hotter it's getting. But yes, we have this new study that was published overnight putting numbers to that, showing that the fires in Spain were made 20 times more likely to have happened because of the impact that humans are making on warming the atmosphere, and the fires in France twice as likely. Significant increase in risk. They haven't been able to do an attribution study on that level for the UK. This fire has been happening recently, but similar studies have been done in the past that show we are going to see more wildfires as our summers get hotter and drier, and also as our winters get wetter with climate change, more vegetation to burn. So it's definitely the direction of travel.
OK, Tom, thank you. Now, for the first time, mayors across England will be able to keep a share of income tax generated in their area. Prime Minister Andy Burnham says he's making good on his promise to transfer power out of Westminster to local leaders. Our political correspondent Lucy McDade is here now. I was just thinking that Andy Burnham will be working out of number 10 North today. It's Friday, that's how he does things. But today's big policy announcement about taking powers out of Westminster and across the country. So that's their headline. What should we be asking around that?
Yeah, so I think, look, we should be asking who's getting it, crucially, who's not getting it, because only half of England at the moment is represented by a directly elected mayor, and it's those who will get these extra powers. So that is certainly a criticism, a kind of a concern maybe that's coming in from not just opposition politicians, but some Labour MPs as well. But look, Andy Burnham isn't the first Prime Minister to talk about devolution, taking power out of Westminster into local areas that know their places best. But what he is bringing, clearly, is an experience as being Mayor of Greater Manchester. He's done a number of things in his own area. He has seen the benefits. So he's coming in saying, I'm going to roll out this type of thing right across the country. And again, no other Prime Minister before has said that we're going to give you powers over income tax revenue, for example. I think one of the questions will be how much of that income tax revenue, what the share will be. But look, mayors across the country are really, really happy about this. They've been asking for this type of power for some time, and they really think it will benefit local transport, housing, jobs, opportunities, training qualifications, for example.
But if it goes wrong, so you get this cash and it goes wrong in that local area, who is then accountable? Is it the local mayors? Is it the local councillors, or is it Andy Burnham?
Yeah, that's a good question, because also I suppose you sometimes hear these announcements from the Prime Minister. It's difficult, it's easy to forget that we don't just have Labour mayors across the country. Labour mayors make up the majority, and I'm sure we'll want to kind of follow what Andy Burnham is suggesting. But you've also got Reform and Conservative mayors. It's already being reported in one of the papers today that the Conservative mayor and the Reform mayors may actually want to use this money to give people tax rebates, so not use the money on local investment, instead put more money back into people's pockets. So you may see an inconsistency across the country. You also have that inconsistency because not everybody has a directly elected mayor. One example is a place like Cornwall. Now, down there are some real political challenges. They don't want to join up with Devon to have a joint mayor. If they had one of those, they may well get these powers over income tax, for example. Well, Cornwall say it would affect our national minority status if we were to join with Devon. They see themselves as their own kind of entity. Can we have a carve-out? Can we have those extra powers without having to directly elect a mayor? So the problem that you'll have there, you might have reflected somewhere else with different issues, if you see what I mean. So this isn't clear-cut or easy. It might be with the mayors that you've got at the moment, but there is half of the English population that doesn't have this set up. So there are the challenges.
We should be speaking to Louise Haigh a little bit later in the show. We'll put all that to her. The other story, can you bring us up to date with Diane Abbott? She was suspended, she's now back.
Yeah, it's a bit of a timeline here, but she was readmitted to the Labour Party last night and given a formal warning over something that she posted online last year. Now, this is where she, instead of saying the Israeli Defence Forces, she called them the Jewish Defence Forces, which caused a lot of offence. So she posted on X last night that by inadvertently referring to the Israeli Defence Force as the Jewish Defence Force, I used wording that conflates the actions of the State of Israel with the Jewish community. I am deeply sorry for any hurt caused and apologise for any hurt caused by it. Now, a spokesperson for the Labour Party has said that an independent investigation internally has been done, free of any political interference. But look, this wasn't the only element here. So Diane Abbott was suspended in 2023. That was over comments that she made to the Observer newspaper, in which she kind of appeared to suggest that Jewish people, Irish people, people from the traveller community experience a different type of racism to what black people do. She apologised for the comments, but she was suspended from the party. She was readmitted for the 2024 general election. She was later suspended because she appeared to stand by those comments in an interview with the BBC. And actually, if you go to her X page online now, a clip of that interview is still kind of pinned right at the top of her page, suggesting that she may still stand by them. We're not clear on where she is on that now, because this investigation appears to relate to that post about the Israeli Defence Forces. I think it's worth asking Louise Haigh about that. But it's worth saying that some of the reactions, so the Board of Deputies of British Jews, for example, said they're concerned by it. The Jewish Leadership Council has said that the Prime Minister must explain how this readmittance corresponds to the zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism. A number of things here. We should say Diane Abbott hasn't responded on that specific point.
We've reached out to her,
We've reached out to her, and she's apologised for that tweet, for one of the comments that she made last year. It's important to say that. And a process has been completed that has allowed her back in.
OK, Lucy, always good to talk. There is, indeed. You've covered it fantastically. Thank you so much. Now, at least 18 people have died attempting to cross from Morocco to the Spanish enclave of Ceuta. The army was called in after huge crowds of people, as you can see here, crossing the border, overwhelming Spanish police. Media there report between 2,000 and 3,000 people have broken through into the territory in North Africa, with many of them swimming across. The city said it was facing a humanitarian and social emergency that was becoming more difficult with each passing hour. Here's what some of the migrants crossing over had to say.
We don't have a good life in Morocco. Don't meet and we don't have good medicine, and we don't have a good teachers, and it's a bad life in Morocco. That's why we get swimming to here.
Those people, it's come from Spain because it doesn't do that there. No work, no eat. We don't want to go to family there. Anything is difficult and easy, and that's problem because the judge there or something like that.
Well, the crossings continued into the night. People were seen swimming across in dangerous conditions, it isn't immediately clear what's prompted so many people to cross into Ceuta all at once. This morning, the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has threatened to suspend its open border Schengen agreement with Spain. So Donald Trump says that Hamas has agreed to disarm in Gaza, but it's unclear exactly when that will happen and what Israel has to say about it. Let's bring in our defence analyst, Robert Clark. Morning, Robert. So it's day 153 of the war. Just help us understand where we actually are this morning. Is this war that's escalating, or is it sort of settled into this grim rhythm that we see, an announcement but strikes daily?
Yeah, I mean, for example, with the Iran and the US side of this conflict, we can see the last 24 hours has been, a pause, a suspension. I think many people are expecting the Americans to increase the strikes, similar to what we saw, last week for the last 2 weeks before that. I think Central Command's commander, Bradley Cooper, Admiral Cooper, is planning a 14-day, almost a blitz on Iranian the missile infrastructure and the military installations that it uses across the Persian Gulf to attack both the shipping containers, but also American bases across the region. We saw, obviously, missiles were intercepted only 2 nights ago over Jordan and Iraq. So I think there's an expectation that the Americans are going to respond quite forcefully over the next 2 weeks, really. So I think most people are braced for that, for sure.
And when people hear heavy wave, what do you think that tells us about Washington and what they're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Washington, they've been criticised repeatedly throughout this for not really having a strategy. I think their strategy so far has been to degrade the Iranian ability to, like I say, to attack the containers and its forces across the region. There's multiple bases, dozens of bases across the Middle East housing US forces. And I think the Iranians, in turn, are trying to coerce America's allies to sort of renege on those basing rights, which really sort of restrict Iranian freedom of movement across the entire region. So I think it's going to be an incredibly active 2 weeks on both sides, to be fair.
And then what do you make of the Gaza peace board and what we've heard from Donald Trump?
Yeah, this is really interesting. I think lots of people have been expecting some sort of breakthrough. The Board of Peace has understandably come under much criticism for the way it's handled this. But in reality, there's been very few options or alternatives to really get Hamas to disarm. We know where the money is, we know where the political leadership is, and I think there's been a lot of effort over the last 2 or 3 months, through the Board of Peace, to be fair, to really sort of stranglehold that money and that finance on Hamas, on its leadership, and then ultimately get them to disarm. And their disarming is the first stage in the key of trying to, go down the idea of, peace in Gaza and then its eventual reconstruction. And I think the start of that seems to be quite close.
Let's turn our attentions now, Robert, just to Ukraine. More strikes there overnight. What's the thinking from Zelensky? What's the thinking from Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, it's been an incredibly tough week for Ukraine. This comes on the back, obviously, of President Zelensky's visit to the United Kingdom and to Washington to really shore up not just the political support, which is relatively strong, particularly in Europe, of course, and stronger now in between America, but also that military support, which is desperate for. So what Russia have been doing for the last sort of week or so, the last few nights in particular, is really absolutely hammering the Ukrainian national infrastructure and the civilian infrastructure with ballistic missiles. The reason why is because Ukraine are running so low on interceptor missiles, which is one reason why it was in America to sort of make the case for, being able to produce more themselves. America have a backlog with this, with both European allies, Middle East allies. Obviously, its bases across the Middle East are coming under attack by Iranian missiles. So there's almost a region-wide, like a Eurasian, starving for interceptor missiles, So the Russians have known this, and they're trying to exploit that gap with Ukrainian weaknesses. We're not really seeing so much with the drone attacks recently. The Ukrainian counter-drone, production rates are very solid. It's the ability to defend against these ballistic missiles.
And then just as we wrap, Robert, your assessment of what we're seeing in Crimea at the moment and those Ukrainian drones.
Yeah, I mean, Crimea's been under, it's received several sort of large blackouts over the last few nights. I think there's been a concerted effort over the last sort of 18 months in particular to really sort of highlight the weakness and the vulnerability that Crimea, the Russian-occupied Crimea is, and how close it can be taken back by the Ukrainians. They've come quite close several times to breaking the logistical nodes connecting the Russian mainland with the occupied forces in Crimea. And I think if more Western effort, particularly American, was given earlier on in the war, they could have done a lot more to try and, take Crimea back. The Ukrainians have always said, I'll finish on this, they've always said repeatedly that Crimea is Ukrainian. And I think we can see, like I say, a concerted effort to try and keep that in the public eye, at least politically, across Europe and America especially.
OK, Robert Clark, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Now, the search is on for one of the world's most famous mountain climbers and several others who have gone missing after a huge avalanche in Pakistan. Emma Birchley's been covering this, keeping a watch on this story. What's the latest, Emma?
Yeah, so this rescue operation very much still underway, and we know now that 4 bodies have been found of the 10 who were taking part in this expedition, and there has been confirmation of the identities of 2 of the people from the president of the Alpine Club of Pakistan, one of them a female climber from Oman, the other a man from Nepal. Now, not the man, however, who has been leading this expedition, a man called Nirmal Purja. He's known as Nims Dai, 43 years old, world-renowned. He used to be in the British Army. He was also a Royal Marine. So he was leading this expedition of 10 climbers, 6 from Nepal, 1 from Oman, US, Pakistan and China. And yesterday at around midday, there was an enormous avalanche. Now, we're talking about the 12th highest mountain in the world. It's called Broad Peak. It's in northern Pakistan. So what has been underway is a search operation, mainly initially by ground, but now helicopters and drones, we understand, are being used. Nims, who was leading this expedition, hugely experienced. In 2019, he became the fastest person ever to summit the 14 highest peaks in the world, each of them over 8,000 metres high, did it in just 189 days, smashed the record at the time by 7 years. Hugely experienced, so an enormous amount of concern about everyone that's been caught up in this. And of course, it doesn't look good because time is passing and the chances of survival are sadly not looking too good.
OK, thank you, Emma. Really appreciate that. Well, still to come here on Mornings. Now, as we've heard this morning, Andy Burnham will give mayors in England a share of income tax revenue for the first time, and it's all part of his push to devolve power away from Westminster. Well, joining us now is the former head of policy for Jeremy Corbyn. It's Andrew Fisher. Great to see you this morning. Thanks for coming in. Before we get into that big devolution issue, can we speak about Diane Abbott, suspended twice, reinstated under Andy Burnham? The right move?
Yeah, I think so. She's apologised and admitted her mistake and has been given a formal warning. And I think if you look at the consistency of other Labour MPs that have posted things on social media, they weren't always suspended either under Keir Starmer. They were sometimes just allowed to give an apology straight away and there was no investigation, no suspension. So I think it's right. Andy Burnham said he wanted to come in, end the factionalism within the Labour Party. And I think, although, you know, there are lots of people who are critical of what Diane Abbott posted, and she's apologised for it, we have to emphasise. There's also a kind of unease amongst some MPs and a lot of Labour Party members. I think 40,000 nearly had signed a petition saying she should be reinstated, that she was dealt with a bit more harshly than others who had done completely comparable things. If you think of Barry Shearman or Steve Reid or Neil Coyle, who was suspended by the parliamentary authorities, they all got back in or weren't suspended at all for posting things that were arguably worse in some of those cases, saying things worse.
Why do you think that is, then? Does Labour have a problem with women?
It might be that. I think it's more her politics. She's on the left of the party, and I think Keir Starmer was a lot harsher with the left of the party rather than right. You know, there may be elements that it's an element of sexism, an element of racism even, but I think it's predominantly about her politics.
OK, let's move on then to devolution. Andy Burnham says this is the biggest transfer of power out of Westminster in a generation, he says. How do you view it?
I mean, look, we don't know a lot of the detail yet. And I think it's quite a big announcement, but there's a lot of questions being asked today about, well, how much of this is going to be additional revenue? Will it be additional revenue for some areas, but actually will it be a cut for some areas? Is it being completely offset against the grant they currently get? There's a lot of questions around that. What powers come with it? Could this result in a postcode lottery? You know, will we have some areas that do things completely differently to others? And how does that fit with kind of what the government wants to do nationally? Because I think, as you mentioned earlier in the programme, you've got Reform mayors, you've got Conservative mayors, you've got Labour mayors, then there'd be a diversity of thought on what to do about areas like skills and housing. And actually, these mayors were elected without having to put forward a manifesto on those things. If those sort of powers and new powers are going to be devolved over new areas of policy, people didn't vote for any change in those areas. So what will that mean? And there's a lot of questions, I think, that will need to be answered in the coming days. But it is important. I think the really powerful thing is that by transferring income tax revenue and business rates, it gives them an income stream that they can borrow against, which means they can do infrastructure projects. If you think back to London in the 1980s, when we had the Greater London Council under Ken Livingstone and John McDonnell as Chair of Finance at the time, they built the Thames Barrier. They were able to invest in buses. They were able to invest in housing, you know, which is something that we really need to do across the country, invest in housing. And those sort of big projects that I think give a place a real sense of identity that can help generate growth is really important. So that's the big kind of plus point for me on it, is the borrowing powers potentially. OK.
The Greater Manchester by-election triggered because Andy Burnham is now Prime Minister. It's a huge area, Greater Manchester. Andy Burnham was such a big figure, a long-time figure in Labour. What have you made of the race so far there?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the polls, Labour's going to win. I think that's... You never want to say those things too categorically before the ballots have been counted.
Come back to bite you.
Yeah, but it looks like Labour's going to win. Yeah, there's been a slight national poll boost. Obviously, Labour won the Makerfield by-election with Andy Burnham standing. And, you know, I think there's been a bit of a tarnishing of Reform and the Greens, actually, in the recent months. There have been scandals involving, and misjudgments rather than scandals, perhaps, involving both Nigel Farage and Zach Polansky. And I think that's taken the shine off both of those. So I'd be very surprised if Labour doesn't win. But you know, I think there is an issue that Andy Burnham was such a big character, and actually filling that gap is going to be... It's a different job. It's a different person who's not going to have the same profile, not going to immediately inherit the kind of King of the North title that he managed to get. Because he stood up to the government during COVID, you know, because of that action and because of the profile he had and he brought to that. So it'll be different, but there are lots of areas of the country where the mayors aren't household names. You think of, I don't know, David Scaife in North Yorkshire. Most people outside of North Yorkshire won't have heard of him, particularly. No. Claire Ward in the East Midlands. They're not household names. The two new Reform mayors whose names I can't even remember. So, you know, it's not always the case that these are high-profile people.
And Burnham essentially saying that he knows what it's like to be ignored by Westminster. And just to round this off, he's in Westminster now. Is he the man to develop top-down the whole country, do you think?
Yeah, look, he was very successful as Greater Manchester Mayor, and that gives him, I think, an insight in getting things done. You know, you think of bus re-regulation, you think of, reducing homelessness, which he did in Greater Manchester. He's had some successes, and he's come in and he's been very ambitious, and that's good. I think people want a Prime Minister who's ambitious, who's got a vision. He's talked about big things that haven't been solved for decades. Social care, solving the housing crisis, taking back control of water, public control of energy and water and things like that. How far he gets on those things is how he's going to be judged. But the fact he's coming in saying, look, these are problems, politicians have failed to deal with them for years, I'm going to address them, I think is what people want to hear.
OK, Andrew Fisher, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you. OK, we have some breaking news to bring you. We're hearing this from Reuters, and they're quoting, they say, the Spanish Home Office. And they say, essentially, they estimate 49,000 people crossed into Ceuta illegally over the past 24 hours. These were the latest pictures that we showed you earlier. People swimming, in some cases, from Morocco, heading in, jumping over barriers, running through to Ceuta. Some saying that this is a better life from them. Local authority police saying essentially this was a humanitarian crisis and they were failing to contain what was happening. But the latest figure there from Reuters, who say they have heard this from Spain's Interior Ministry, just estimating that 49,000 migrants crossed into Ceuta over the past 24 hours. And just to add, this has been a huge cost of life too. Our latest numbers are that 18 people out of those 49,000 have lost their lives in this dangerous crossing into Ceuta in Spain. That's the very latest there. Now, a fraudster tracked down by Sky News in Tenerife has flown to the UK, and she's since been arrested after more than a year on the run. Pamela Gwinnett was sentenced to 6 years in prison after raiding £300,000 from a pensioner's savings to spend it on luxuries, including Botox. Our correspondent, Phoebe Southworth, has the details.
It's a tale of greed and cowardice. Pamela Gwinnett, the runaway fraudster who Sky News tracked down to Tenerife earlier this year, is now finally back in the UK after more than a year on the run. When we caught up with Gwinnett at her picturesque apartment block in Los Cristianos in the south of Tenerife earlier this year, we asked her why she had defrauded a vulnerable pensioner, Joan Green, out of £300,000 of her life savings and spent it on Botox treatments, expensive meals, a £22,500 car. Well, last year a judge gave Pamela Gwinnett a 6-year prison sentence for fraud, but by that time Gwinnett had already fled to Tenerife and she's been there ever since. Well, last night we accompanied Greater Manchester police officers as they swooped in to make an arrest here at Manchester Airport. National Crime Agency officers led Gwinnett through the terminal behind us. We could see through the door just behind me. Gwinnett could see we were outside. She put on her sunglasses in what looked like an attempt to shield herself from us. This is how that moment played out. Is it finally time to apologise, Pamela?
Do
you still intend to appeal your conviction and sentence, Pamela?
The cops a bit of space.
Is that a yes, Pamela? You might have been able to see there that when I asked Pamela Gwinnett if she was still intending to appeal her conviction and sentence. There was the faintest of nods that she gave, but that was the only reaction that we got from her. She might very well have a lot on her mind. She firstly will be thinking perhaps about the life she's left behind in Tenerife. We know from neighbours and people who knew her on the island that she was living what can only be described as the life of Riley. She was seen swimming in the pool at the apartment complex where she was living. Neighbours and other people saw her going shopping, having her nails done at the salon. But perhaps more pressing in Pamela Gwinnett's mind will be what happens today at Preston Crown Court, where she is due to appear to face the consequences of absconding last year. It may be that we hear today there is a significant addition to the 6-year prison sentence she already faces, but a huge relief for the family of Joan Green, who are absolutely ecstatic that this woman is now back in the UK and is about to serve a lengthy prison sentence.
We have some breaking news to bring you. We're hearing from Reuters, who say they've spoken to a Hamas official, that the Gaza agreement is a phased agreement that must be implemented by stages, essentially saying that they have agreed to the Gaza Board of Peace deal, according to Reuters. This is what we're hearing in the last few minutes. This is the first time that we've heard from Hamas in this time. So let me just bring you a couple of the lines that we're seeing today. We're hearing that Hamas, they say, will hand over weapons for storage under the responsibility of the Palestinian National Committee. That's dependent on Israel endorsing this agreement. That's according to a Hamas official that has spoken to Reuters. If Israel, they say, does not approve any of this, we will not implement it. So if Israel does not approve the accord, we will not implement it. That's according to a Hamas official. Earlier, we heard how this Gaza Board of Peace had essentially said that there has been an agreement in Gaza to have peace in the area, that the Strip will be governed by a Palestinian government and work for the Palestinian people. President Trump had also said that this was a historic and monumental moment here. How this will work, the detail of that and how arms will be taken out of Gaza, still to be ironed out. But essentially, Donald Trump was saying that this move, this peace move that Hamas appear to have agreed to, will mean that Gaza will no longer be a base of attack for Israel. We're yet to hear from the Israeli government, but Hamas, talking to Reuters, say that both sides agree with this text. Israel must begin to implement the first stage. This is what a Hamas official is saying, and it's via Reuters. Just for clarity here, we're hearing it from Reuters, and that Israel, they're saying, must withdraw its forces from Gaza. That's from a Hamas official talking to Reuters. So we will keep a watch on those breaking lines, but we wanted to bring it to you directly here on Sky News. So listen, we're going to move on now. We're going to talk about the World Cup. There's a lot of talk about selling off the World Cup, in parts at least, and FIFA has defended its plans to sell off shares in competitions, including the World Cup. And it's received, it's fair to say, widespread backlash. UEFA has agreed to boycott the tournament. If the sale does go ahead, there's still a consultation period to be had. And we're joined now by the chair of the Football Supporters Association. It's Tom Greatex. Tom, this is huge. I've described it this morning already as a civil war in football. How would you describe it?
Well, I would describe it as the leadership of FIFA making a massive misjudgment and now having to face the consequences of that. I think that's as straightforward as it is in reality. And it's important, but it's not just UEFA versus FIFA, which is sometimes the way it's characterised. Actually, it's CONCACAF, it's some of the Asian federations, and I know that there's just quite amongst, indeed, some of the African federations as well. Not just about the proposal, but the way in which it's been given a very short deadline to respond, and the fact that nobody knew about it until a couple of days ago.
Gianni Infantino and his position and his role, how do you assess that?
Well, I think he has got to a position where, because he hasn't been challenged on lots of controversial things that he's done or driven through, the Peace Prize, overturning a red card, You know, even introducing hydration breaks and a half-hour half-time in the final, all without any real challenge from national federations. I think he thought he was untouchable, and I think he's now going to deal with the consequences of that, and it's about time.
And that's important. You mentioned that also about the hydration breaks or the ad breaks and the half-time show, and whether that was the actual seeds of what we're hearing now.
Yeah, like the tip of the iceberg, and nobody said anything. Well, people said a lot, actually, but a hydration break, you can go, OK, it's hot in America, but actually a lot of those matches were played in air-conditioned conditions, so there was really no need to have that break, so it simply became an ad break. And, you know, at half-time, well, they made it longer so they could put the sets on and off. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's the tail wagging the dog. Football, it does not have a half-an-hour half-time. It has a 15-minute half-time, and that should be absolutely set there. And turning over a red card for the American football team because Donald Trump intervened. I mean, I don't know about you, Todd, but did you actually go to the World Cup?
No, I wasn't there. I didn't go because of the ticket pricing, along with a lot of other people, but I've spoken to a lot of people who were there. Yeah.
And so do you think that was the thin end of the iceberg? I mean, the thing I take away, I went to the World Cup, the semi-finals, I was there very, very briefly, but the thing I took away from it, and I will never forget it as long as I live, 4 young guys, youngish guys, who were there, they were brothers and relatives. They had paid £20,000 for 4 tickets. And I will never forget that as long as I live. That is a ridiculous amount of money for ordinary tickets to guarantee they got them. And can people sort of see that? You know, the way that the Americans ran this World Cup, it was very commercial, it was very expensive, and it will only get worse if we allow this investment to happen.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Why was private equity interested in taking a stake? What is it they want to do? They want to maximise revenues and get returns for their investors. How do you do that in football? It's by changing things. And if they get carte blanche to do that, what you're going to see is degradation of what's important about the game. Look, the World Cup is brilliant. It's the absolute pinnacle of football. It's brilliant because it brings nations together in that sporting spectacle. But that means it needs to be protected, it needs to be respected, it needs to be nurtured. And if you take it away from people in football and stop it being something that's about football and within football, then you put that in jeopardy. And I think that's why, as well as not getting very much notice about it, so many of the national associations are up in arms about it, and why you've seen the response you've seen in the last day or so.
But a member nation like, I'm going to pluck out of thin air, Cape Verde, would have the same vote as England would have. You could imagine that if you dangle £20 million in front of them and say, here, have this to develop football in your country, and there's going to be more down the line if you agree to our new deal, you can see how plenty of countries would be tempted by this.
Yes, in the short term, but they've got to think about what is the damage that could be done to the tournament, and particularly if UEFA nations carry out their threat, then that's going to be a moot point, isn't it? Because it's not going to be the same spectacle to attract the same revenue to distribute that revenue. Look, the World Cup's made a lot of money. Some of that is distributed amongst those nations. There's no need to sell a bit of it off to be able to get resources around and to help develop football in lots of countries. And I think, you know, Gianni Infantino's defence of this was that this was about getting revenue to smaller developing nations, grassroots football in all parts of the world. You don't need to sell it off to be able to do that. You need to nurture it and protect it and develop it.
And here's the uncomfortable... sorry, Jackie, just to round up, because the uncomfortable question now is... supporters will lose out. You represent supporters. If there is a boycott, fans will lose out.
They will, but I think supporters I've spoken to in the last couple of days, and particularly since last night, are very pleased to see the FA and UEFA nations, and now others as well, standing up for football, because they feel that they've seen, as we've just discussed, a whole range of things that are undermining the World Cup. And what supporters like is the spectacle of the best tournament in the world. And if people play around with that, then that puts that in jeopardy, and that's
the integrity.
Why do you think we've got to this point? Do you think Gianni Infantino sees his role differently? I mean, he is meant to be the custodian of world football. Do you now think he thinks it's bigger than that? He's like a sort of nation-state of its own, a president, if you like?
I mean, I hesitate to try to get inside Gianni Infantino's head, but I think the consequence of there not being enough challenge or scrutiny is that he behaves in an overmighty way. And You know, he's overreached, I think, in this occasion. And I think, you know, people said, does there need to be a change at the top of FIFA? I think the change that needs to be at the top of FIFA is a fundamental overhaul of the way it's structured so that the integrity and the credibility of that organisation is enhanced and protected, because it's been hugely damaged over the last few weeks.
Yeah. Tom, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jackie, too. OK, let's get your latest weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Now, it's cooler for most and more unsettled, but there's no significant rain expected over England and Wales. Early cloud over East Anglia and the southeast will clear during the morning, leaving southern Britain mostly dry and sunny, but there may be the odd coastal shower. Elsewhere, many places will stay dry with sunny spells, but showers will develop fairly widely. Some heavy and thundery. It'll be cool in the north, near average elsewhere, and Shetland may see some more general rain later, but expect little change otherwise.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
So listen, we'll be talking about the World Cup fallout and selling off shares.
It's a massive subject, the toing and froing through FIFA and UEFA, and there was a response from FIFA last night. We'll also talk about Newcastle, what's been going on there, because that is the other big story of the last 24 hours.
Show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
There's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch way. Right, we're going to get in. Right. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away. Thank you very much. Okay, but
Listen,
I told you 3 times.
They saw two guys, two bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
But that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Well, Jack is here with the sport. Take it away, Jackie.
Well, we've talked about FIFA a lot this morning, but I think we should also talk about Newcastle because that was such a huge story. And the fact is, the story has broken without Newcastle breaking it. Eddie Howe leaving after such a successful stint at the club, taking them to the Champions League twice, knockout phase of the Champions League, a trophy for the first time in 70 years. And I think, enough's enough. You just can't face another cycle of putting together a really good team and then watching it being sold off, gem by gem. Lost Gordon, lost Tonali, lost Isak last season, and possibly going to lose Bruno Guimaraes, the captain, to Arsenal, possibly in this transfer window. It is
challenging times ahead.
Well, I think it's going to be difficult for Newcastle. You've got to rebuild. You've also got a new manager coming in. Now, it's not confirmed yet, but we're all going to have a great fun seeing how he says his name. Matthias Jaissler. I think it is. Austrian-German, coming from Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia, where he's won back-to-back Champions League, Asian Champions League titles. Also in the Austrian Bundesliga before that. Never in the Premier League, though. So everyone who comes to the Premier League finds it a little bit of a struggle at first, I think. But young, go-getting, quite exciting, we're told. Who knows? We don't know much about him, and it's not even been confirmed yet. But anyway, interesting season ahead. Maybe a difficult season ahead at Newcastle. Tonight, Scottish football returns. It's barely been away, but it's back. It is Dundee United against Rangers. Why is this interesting? Derek McInnes, who was the manager of Hearts, who led such a fantastic campaign last season. They nearly won the title. They were pipped at the end by Celtic, is now in charge of Rangers. He's taken with him Lawrence Shankland from Hearts, who's only allowed to leave Hearts if Rangers came in for him, his boyhood club. And they did. So he left. So it's all changed there at Rangers, and it all kicks off tonight.
Thank you, Jackie. More at the top of the hour.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello, good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Friday, the 31st of July. I'm Leah Belletto. Here are your headlines. Gianni Infantino's FIFA blames the media for the fallout over plans to sell shares in the World Cup, saying it will continue with the consultation process. The Gaza Board of Peace hails a historic breakthrough, with Hamas agreeing to a disarmament roadmap on the condition Israel withdraws its troops. A runaway fraudster who stole hundreds of thousands from a pensioner is arrested after Sky News found her living in her picturesque Tenerife hideaway. Spain's Home Office say they estimate 49,000 people have crossed into a North African exclave in the past 24 hours, overwhelming authorities. One of the world's most famous climbers and a star of a Netflix documentary is among a group of missing people after an avalanche in Pakistan. How a treatment unchanged since Victorian times could be about to see a revolution and hundreds of thousands of lives saved. Hello, good morning. FIFA is defending its plan to sell shares in its competitions, including the World Cup, to private investors after European clubs announced a boycott. So, in a statement, FIFA said this: our planned consultation process was disrupted by incorrect media reports. We will proceed with this consultation process to ensure that each member association has the ability to express its vote based on facts. Nobody is selling football. This is not something FIFA would ever entertain. Everyone has the right to express their opposition and to seek further clarification, but no single entity can claim to represent all 211 member associations around the world. This is bombshell. Jack is with us now. I've described it this morning as a civil war in football, but in the history of football, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before.
Well, I suppose, when there was a breakaway of the, super teams in Europe trying to, form a super league, it really all kicked off then. But this is on another level because you've got UEFA so powerful, with all of the, most of the key countries in world football. If you think of the quarterfinals, 6 of the 8 of those 8 quarterfinalists all came from Europe. The big stars play in those teams and in those leagues. Breaking away and saying, no, we're not going to have anything to do with the World Cup if you press ahead with this plan, which is called the FIFA Forward Enterprise. And as you said, it's about selling 20% stake of the World Cups and their competitions to private investors, and UEFA have gone, absolutely not. It's not yours to sell. You don't own football. You're a custodian of it. You are looking after it for the world. You can't sell it in this way, and it's a slippery slope, I guess, if you were to sell it, because investors will always want a return on their money, and that return's got to be greater for every year. Where does it end? You will have, in the end, probably no fans in the stadium. It'll be all corporates in there. And just things like that people are worried about. It will just go down the wrong route. So UEFA said no. They've got 55 members. CONCACAF, which is North America and Central America, so Canada, Mexico, the USA, have all said we're against it as well. So that's 41 votes. They need 106 votes in total to block it. Equally, Gianni Infantino needs 106 votes to get it to go through. It's hard to see how you could get it to go through, or what the investment would be if the key teams didn't play in it. What would UEFA do? Break away and create their own World Cup? It's possible that could happen. The FA have said, we stand shoulder to shoulder with our European colleagues, so they are very much in with UEFA's block as well. And it will start quite soon, because you've got the Women's World Cup in Brazil next year. There are playoffs for that happening in October. England are involved in that. They play Greece. So it would involve all of those competitions in which UEFA teams just would not play a part. It is extraordinary. They say they'll press ahead with the whole process. It's hard to see how they will get this over the line.
Yeah, we'll keep a watch on this, Jackie, for now. Thank you, appreciate it. Now, Spain's Home Office estimate that 49,000 people illegally crossed from Morocco into the Spanish exclave of Ceuta after the last 24 hours. That's according to Reuters. We also know that at least 18 people have died attempting to make the crossing. The army was called in after huge crowds. These are the latest pictures that we had from yesterday. Across the border, overwhelming police. According to Reuters, though, Spain's Interior Ministry are estimating that 49,000 people broke into the territory and mainly swimming across, as you can see, scrambling to the sides, jumping fences too. The city said it was facing a humanitarian and social emergency, and that was becoming, they say, more difficult with each passing hour. Here's what some of the migrants said earlier.
We don't have a good life in Morocco. And we don't have good medicine. And we don't have a good teachers, and it's a bad life in Morocco. That's why we get swimming to here.
Those people, it's come from Spain because it doesn't do that there. No work, no eat. We don't want to go to family there. Anything is difficult and easy, and that's problem because the judge there or something like that.
Well, crossings continued into the night. People were seen swimming across in dangerous conditions. It isn't immediately clear what's prompting so many people to cross into C2 all at once. This morning, the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, has threatened to suspend its open border Schengen agreement with Spain. Now, fire crews continue to battle a large fire in Suffolk that's burned through at least 150 hectares of land. Our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, is in Westleton. Just bring us up to speed with how things are this morning and today.
Morning, Leah. Well, I'm in Westleton Village Hall, so this is where they evacuated the 50 or so people from caravans and cottages that were threatened by that wildfire starting the night before last. The good news for them is the authorities are delighted by the response of the local community.
Yeah, we appear to have lost Tom Clark there. We'll take a look at that and get him back later if we can. But we're going to move on now to the US president, because he said that the Gaza Board of Peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. Hamas has reopened in the past, responded rather, in the past half hour with an official telling Reuters that Israel must first approve the phased plan that would include withdrawing its troops from Gaza. We're yet to hear from Israel. Our international correspondent John Sparks has the latest for you from Jerusalem.
It's a very big headline, isn't it? It's a big, bombastic headline, historic agreement on the complete disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. I think, as often with Trump's announcements, the very real complexities, the very real difficulties, they lurk just behind the headlines. Let me tell you a bit about the context here. You have US officials, along with mediators from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, talking to senior leaders from Hamas in Cairo at the moment. And they're talking about the second phase of the ceasefire agreement, this agreement that was struck last October that has brought a semblance of peace, a ceasefire in name certainly to Gaza, although there are near daily violations. So they're now talking about some of those really thorny questions, like who's going to govern Gaza, who's going to rebuild it, who's going to pay for it, how is it going to be policed. But a key part of that is around the disarmament of Hamas, which still ultimately controls the territory. And we've got Trump saying we've got a phased disarmament agreed by Hamas. But what about the details here? I mean, how long is this process going to take? Are we talking about a couple of weeks? Are we talking about a year or more? We don't know. Other details like What do they do with the weapons? Where are they going to be held? Again, we don't have the details. I mean, certainly the Israelis are going to want the heavy weaponry to be completely destroyed. And then I think probably most importantly, what happens in conjunction with this disarmament? Because it's going to be a complicated process. For example, Hamas are going to want the Israelis to withdraw completely from the territory of Gaza if they begin the process of disarmament, and the Israelis aren't going to want to do that. Reaction, nothing official. A Hamas source quoted this morning saying it's a draft agreement. They wouldn't take any action until Israel has completely withdrawn from the territory of Gaza. And I should tell you that the Israel Defense Forces currently hold about 60 or 70% of Gaza. On the Israeli side, they're going to be skeptical, right? I think that's clear. They're going to be skeptical that Hamas will disarm, and they're going to want the complete demilitarization of Gaza before they really engage in this process. So I think, ultimately you've got both sides. They're still a long way apart. Trump knows that. I think his announcement is probably more aspirational than actual. It's more broad brush. I think we're still a long way from the final point in this process.
John Sparks there. Now, for the first time, mayors across England will be able to keep a share of income tax generated in their area. Prime Minister Andy Burnham says he's making good on his promise to transfer power out of Westminster to local leaders. Lucy's here, been keeping a watch on this. Isn't the first time that power's been, sent outside of Westminster. You had George Osborne's Northern Powerhouse. In different guises we've had it. But today, Andy Burnham really pushing his signature policy here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Devolution is not a new word. In fact, Keir Starmer, in a number of speeches when he was Prime Minister, mentioned devolution, wanting to push power out of Westminster. I think a lot of regional mayors still felt that they were a little bit suffocated with what they could do. They used this phrase kind of going cap in hand to Whitehall, asking for grants, fighting for different pots of money. So Andy Burnham is saying, I'm keeping good on my promise, and I'm actually handing them more power. And look, giving them a share of income tax revenue is a significant thing. It's never been done before. He says they know their local areas best. Now, what Andy Burnham says he can do differently is draw on his experience as Mayor of Greater Manchester, and that is clearly what he's doing. He says a lot of the things that he rolled out there were effective. He wants to see it happen across the country because he can help grow local economies. The one criticism or the concern at the moment is that half of England isn't represented by a directly elected mayor. You have parts of the country that are trying to go through this local government reorganisation, which is effectively working out how they can come together to directly elect a mayor. That is how they get access to those greatest powers. If they don't have a mayor at the moment, it doesn't look like they will get that power. So you have this concern that there is going to be deeper regional inequality, which of course is something Andy Burnham says he wants to completely get rid of.
Yeah, he says in every postcode he'll be delivering that
so
change.
He's going to have to address that for his own Labour MPs as well, because there are some in rural coastal communities who are worried that this is going to happen.
Another big story today for Labour, for Diane Abbott too. Suspended twice, reinstated. Have we heard from her yet today?
We haven't heard from her today. We heard from her last night. As you say, she's been readmitted to the party. She's been given a formal warning, and this was over something that she posted on X last year. So let's just see what she said last night. She said, I've been issued with a formal warning for a tweet I previously posted by inadvertently referring to the Israeli Defence Force as the Jewish Defence Force. I used wording that conflates the actions of the State of Israel with the Jewish community. I'm deeply sorry for any hurt caused by that conflation and apologise for any hurt caused by it. And the Labour Party says that this was an independent investigation, kind of clear of any political interference. But look, Diane Abbott was suspended for the first time in 2023. That was over a comment that she made to the Observer newspaper. She suggested that Irish people, Jewish people, people from the traveller community experience prejudice but not racism.
Yeah.
That obviously caused offence. She apologised for it. But in 2024, last year, she also then appeared to say that she stood by those remarks. So there are some today saying that they're a bit concerned by this decision to readmit her. Just one, for example, the Board of Deputies of British Jews saying that they are concerned by this announcement. So, of course, she has apologised. The government saying today that an independent process has been followed. But clearly, I think there will be some concern about what this says about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party.
OK, thank you, Lucy. Really appreciate that. Well, joining us now is the Shadow Business Secretary Andrew Griffith. Great to have you with us this morning. We'll start with Diane Abbott. What's your response to Labour reinstating her?
Look, to be honest, it's a decision for them. I haven't followed that debate particularly closely. If she's made mistakes, that's been investigated and she's fully apologised and learnt the lessons from that, then that is a matter for the government. OK,
let's go on then to Andy Burnham's signature policy today. One presumes he's in number 10 North, very pleased with handing over more cash to local mayors. Do the Conservatives agree that this is the right move?
Well, it's another day where there's more questions than answers, no plans on how things are going to be funded. Conservatives are here. We're happy to have a debate about any policy any day of the week. But frankly, Prime Minister, get a grip. You can't just roam around throwing ideas out there, spooking the markets, chilling investment from business, who have no idea how these plans are going to get paid for. What happens to the 50% of the country that don't have a metro mayor? How much redistribution are we going to see from those parts of the country that are growing and contributing relatively more? And what about the ability of mayors to choose, if they wish, to help local businesses by cutting rates, to put money back into families' pockets to help with the cost of living crisis? Is it a one-way street where you can only ever spend more and put up more taxes? So I'm afraid to say this isn't very prime ministerial. It's another day of vibe politics, not answering the questions. And there is a real price to this in that people don't know where they stand. They don't know what tax rises are coming down the path. And businesses I speak to are really worried about they're putting plans on hiring people on ice. They're putting plans on expanding. We've got this real summer of uncertainty now because the Prime Minister wanders around making unfunded pledges.
What advice have you given to Conservative metro mayors about what they would do with that pot of money?
Well, look, they don't need advice from me. They're strong figures in their communities. Like me, they listen and talk to businesses every day in their high streets and local communities. And what they are saying is that it's the burden of red tape, the fear of all of the extra legislative proposals and things like business taxes, which have gone up enormously under this government. And whilst for some, the government's talked about reducing the business rates for a select few in things like pubs and nightclubs, they've left whole sectors of the economy still paying vastly more. Post offices, restaurants, hospitality, comedy clubs, hairdressers, they're all paying more business rates already thanks to this government. I'm not sure they want to hear about even more spending plans funded by even more taxes.
But what's your offer to, say, people in the North and the Midlands that do have metro mayors?
Well, look, the metro mayors themselves will decide that. I mean, I'm worried about every part of the community, not just those that happen to have Labour's top-down model of mayors. Here in West Sussex, people do not want a mayor. They've never been asked for one, and yet Labour seek to impose that on them. So when the government wants to, it's a very top-down, centralising government. They're in the process of taking control of the railways away from regional communities and nationalising those centrally. When it comes to school heads, powers that used to sit with governing bodies and academy boards are again being repatriated to Whitehall. So if you're serious about devolution, and Conservatives believe that people make the best decisions locally, whether that's in their parish, their village, their family, or businesses themselves making those decisions, when the government wants to, it's very happy to centralise and take more power and have more red tape centrally. You've got to walk the walk on this stuff.
With respect, your party created metro mayors. You know, it was George Osborne's Northern Powerhouse, those devolution deals. This is Conservative architecture, and you're criticising it, essentially.
No, I'm criticising the lack of choice. This should be a choice. If we believe in, and I do, if we believe in bottom-up decision-making, then you've got to listen to what people want. Right now, the government is tearing up established forms of local government across the country, not just here in West Sussex, but many, many places, to impose their own top-down model when it comes to things like planning. We all need planning reform, because we need desperately to get those homes built. But again, the government is dictating to communities where those homes go, rather than listening to what local communities want.
The Tees Valley Mayor, Ben Houchin, of your party, essentially, has indicated that he might use power to give tax rebates. That's not the spirit of devolution, is it?
No, spot on. I mean, what the mayor of Teesside is saying, and I'm sure other Conservative mayors in time, is, look, we know what's best for our community. And if that extends to reducing the burden of taxes on hard-pressed small businesses, if that extends to helping families with the cost of living by rebating them some of the excessive council taxes, overnight we've seen figures from the government even before this saying that council tax is going to go up by £500 on average by the end of this Parliament. That's an incredibly significant increase for ordinary families facing the cost of living. And if Conservative mayors are saying they'll use some of their freedoms, their local decision-making, to make those choices that people have voted for, then all power to their elbow.
OK, we'll leave it there. Andrew Griffith, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
You're watching Mornings on Sky News. After the break, we'll have the very latest for you on the search for a world-renowned mountaineer missing after a huge avalanche in Pakistan.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
The search is on for one of the world's most famous mountain climbers and several others who have gone missing after a huge avalanche in Pakistan. Emma Birchley has been keeping across this story for us. She joins us now. Emma, just remind us of this story and then, obviously, the latest.
So there was an avalanche yesterday. It was around midday. It's on the 12th highest peak in the world, over 8,000 metres high. It's called Broad Peak in the Karakoram Mountains of northern Pakistan. This avalanche happened. There were 10 people on an expedition. It was being led by Nirmal Persia. known as Nims Dai, 43 years old, world-renowned climber. Here he is. He was actually in the British Army, also a Royal Marine. So he was leading a team, 6 from Nepal, himself included, also someone from the US, someone from Pakistan, Oman and China. What we know now is that a rescue operation is underway, but it's also a recovery operation because 4 bodies have been found and 2 of the people have been identified. So one of them, a woman from Oman, and also a Nepalese man, not actually Nims Dai. Now, they were found by ground teams, but there are helicopters and drones taking part in this rescue operation. Just to give a little bit more background about Nims, in 2019, he became the fastest person ever to conquer the 14 highest mountains in the world, each over 8,000 metres high. He did it in 189 days, smashing the record at the time by more than 7 years. And he featured in a Netflix documentary called 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. And he'd climbed those mountains over and over again. Hopefully he will have survived, but the chances are disappearing. They are very slim at this stage. It was midday yesterday, after all, when this avalanche happened.
OK. Emma, thank you. You're watching Mornings here on Sky News. Got a bit of a treat coming up after the break. We'll be speaking to actor Alan Cumming about his fundraising efforts for a theatre in the Scottish Highlands. Now, whether it's from Cabaret or X-Men, Tiptoe or Traitors, we've all known the varied work of our next guest one way or another. And now actor and presenter Alan Cumming has yet another exciting project inbound with Ewan McGregor to keep Scottish Highland theatre thriving. And I'm pleased to say Alan joins us now from the beautiful Perthshire. Alan, first of all, good morning. Tell us all about the project.
Hello. Well, yes, the project you're mentioning is called Supernova. It's a show based on this movie that I'm going to be doing with Ewan McGregor. We just announced it the other day, but that's not till next season. But I'm right in the midst of the season now. I'm in Pitlochry now and rehearsing a musical called History of Paper with Shirley Henderson. So it's a two-hander, she and I, and a piano player. So I'm as soon as I finish with you, I'm rushing up the hill to the rehearsal room. So it's all happening here.
It's all happening where you are, which is really close to your heart, isn't it? Investing in local theatre and breathing new light into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was born 15 minutes from here. I sort of cut my teeth on subsidised Scottish theatres like this. And so suddenly when this job came up, I had no intention of, running a theatre, but it just sort of happened. I sort of went, all right. And it's a lovely thing to be able to sort of give back and to sort of say to people, why can't this theatre in the Highlands, with amazing facilities, actually, it's got incredible facilities, why can't we make this an international theatre centre? And that's what's happening. People are coming and we've got, really incredible artists and it is very exciting, I have to say. It's exhausting, but it's exciting.
You've taken up this job and I was reading that you've, given up your salary too to do this. Tell us why.
I mean, a variety of reasons. I sort of feel that I don't need the money and the money could go to other places. Also, I'm a volunteer now, and that sort of frees me up in terms of not having to worry about if I say things to people in meetings that they're offended. And also, I think I don't advocate the idea that artists shouldn't be paid at all. But for me, it was a way that I felt that I could work better. I could bring the skills that I have and not feel I had to do the things that I wasn't good at, that somebody else should be getting paid for to do. Like kind of I'm not a spreadsheet man, you know what I mean? So I thought it would be good that we should use the money for a spreadsheet supernova.
And that spreadsheet is including celebrity fundraisers from Ewan McGregor, from Lulu. You're essentially going through your phone book and phoning up famous friends for help out. Tell us more about that. Were they keen to do it straight away?
Honestly, it's been so... I think what's good about having a platform and being well known is that when you sort of say, the ideas I've got here and the thing about I want people to come away to this beautiful place and be in this kind of artistic bubble and be away from the normal glare, and you can really focus on, you don't have to worry about getting the tube home or getting you walk across this little bouncy bridge and you go to your little cottage, and it's sort of this sort of idyllic way to make work and also this destination for people to come and see work in. It is beautiful. And so I've been sort of selling that idea, and it's just people have come, said, people get it and want to be a part of it. We did this festival. The first thing I did was an LGBT festival in January called Out in the Hills, and we got amazing people. And then one day Ian McKellen emailed me and said, oh, can I come? Can I come and do a play reading? And just sort of things like that are happening. It hasn't been hard for me to get, it's not been difficult, because I think when people come and see it, they're like, wow. And we've been putting on we've got Lear on right now with a female actor, Maureen Beattie, playing Lear. Sure. And I think an incredible production. I think when people see, that level of production and great acting in this beautiful theatre in this area, they totally get it. So it's not been hard at all, but I have been, going through my address book and kind of, if you've ever done a film or worked with me in the last 40 years, you'll be getting a call.
But it's so interesting, isn't it? Because the state of theatre generally and the reports around theatre, looking at this, record attendances, more than 37 million visits, to the West End actually outselling Broadway, yet a third of theatres they expect to lose money this year. Does that add up to you? It's a mixed picture, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, I mean, all the excitement and the kind of support I feel up here is amazing, but also we are, running at a loss, and we've got to think of clever ways to make money. It's just theatre is expensive, and, we try to keep the ticket prices down so that it's accessible to everybody. That's the other thing. I think one of the things I find, I live in New York as well, and the prices for Broadway shows are extortionate. I mean, it's ridiculous. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars just for one ticket. So I think it's really important for me, especially, and this is Scotland. We like the fact that we are an egalitarian nation and everybody should have a chance to see stuff. And we value the arts, but that means that we need more help. And we are a charity, so, maybe if anyone watching wants to chip in, I'd be very grateful.
But they're not, the noise around theatre, dance to ballet, and you've got Timothy Chalamet, who said earlier this year that it's dying a death. When you hear, very famous people on the stage say that type of rhetoric, what's your fight back there?
Oh, I don't fight little Timothy. I just think he was misguided and said something that he has obviously regretted. I mean, art forms like ballet and opera, yes, are less popular than they were when they were first invented. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be done. And I think it's also ironic that his sister and his mum are ballet dancers. Yeah. So there was maybe a little more of a sort of Freudian thing going on there than we imagined. But I'm not fighting against anything. I'm encouraging people to just come and experience stuff and expand their horizons and and kind of challenge their preconceptions as well. And I found that when you go out into the world, like with this theatre in a positive way and an open way, people really respond amazingly to it.
So let's circle back to the play currently, because it's a love story, as you mentioned, told through receipts and ticket stubs. How does that work?
Well, there's a sort of a box with all these receipts and tickets and everything in it, and cards. And there's me kind of looking through it, and Shirley Henderson, and we started talking about our relationship, and it's all, I remember when this happens. And it's sort of like a memory play with this beautiful music, and it has a real sucker punch of high emotion. And I mean, bring your hankies. I saw it. It's been done once before at the Edinburgh Festival a couple of years ago. And I don't think I've ever been as moved in the theatre as I was that night. So I was obsessed with it. And also I realised that it was done by two amazing young actors. And I just thought that it would work better with two older people looking back. Yeah. And I think it's so crazy. We're about to go and do a run in the rehearsal room after I talk to you. And I'm going to be a hot, wet mess in like 2 hours. But it's very cathartic, and it's very beautiful. It's about love and loss, and also the added sort of thing is that the writer of the original play, it's called Oliver Emanuel, died right before it went into production 2 years ago, and so there's this added resonance. Him talking about grief and loss when we lost him is a really. I feel like doing this now is a beautiful way to honour him.
Alan, before you go, can I ask you about Tiptoe rather, because Russell T David, look at me, I've been up since 3 a.m. Russell T David, he essentially said that, the world's getting darker, it's getting tougher, and I just wondered, do you feel that? Do you think that homophobia in this country, around the world, is getting worse?
It's not just me thinking that those are the facts. Hate crimes have gone up like hundreds of %. And I feel like if we have leaders in the world, like I'm talking about Trump, obviously, who advocate hatred, then that's the manifestation of that is hate crimes against marginalised groups. It's always been the way. And I feel what's really important is, our leaders need to be stronger and to fight back and encourage people to be kind and decent and to not blame and vilify. And also we've got to draw a line in the sand. And I think that's what Tiptoe brought up so well. We've got to draw a line in the sand about this hateful rhetoric that is just so normalised. That, I think, is the problem. And I don't, TikTok, I'm saying it now.
Oh, what have I done?
Tiptoe was an amazing thing and an amazing project to do, but I don't see it as something in the future. I feel we're there. When we were filming it, I went down the street with my dog, and there were all these Union Jacks all the way around the park and all the way around certain houses in this area of Manchester. And then I looked into it, and I saw those were the houses of people who from Southeast Asia. So it's targeted and it's intentional, and we've got to, as a community and as a society, say that we do not accept it.
And is that one of the ways you think individually we can fight back kindness and speaking up where we see hatred?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a way what Tiptoe did really well was start a discussion. You know, I think that's what we wanted to do, was sort of start people talking, go, oh my God, it's really bad here, and what can we do? And I think, kindness, decency, respect, all these things that are sort of seen as weaknesses now in our culture. We need to reclaim them and own them and just make the world a little kinder place. It's just got to... I mean, I don't feel that in Scotland, I have to say, but I do feel that in certain parts of England when I visited recently, and I definitely feel that in lots of places in America. And also just the rhetoric we hear from those leaders, it's all about... It's kindness is seen as a weakness. When did that happen? You know, that's actually one of the best and freest things we've got in our sort of personal arsenal. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's try and be a little kinder, everybody.
Alan, I could talk to you all morning, but I know you've got to dash off to rehearsals.
I've got to go and cry and sing.
Yeah. Get the tissues ready. Thank you so much. Such a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk to you.
Now, research on a revolutionary treatment for deadly snake bites, it's making progress. With scientists working on an oral pill that can be taken to prevent venom from spreading. Ashish Joshi went to visit scientists in Liverpool and Denmark to see how they're creating antibodies in a lab. Just a warning, his report contains graphic images of snake bite wounds.
This is venom from one of the world's deadliest snakes, a saw-scaled viper. Just a tiny amount can trigger catastrophic bleeding, organ failure and death. Every year, more than 2.5 million people are bitten by venomous snakes. Around 138,000 will die. Hundreds of thousands more are left permanently disabled. For more than a century, the treatment has barely changed. Horses are injected with snake venom, and the antibodies produced by the animal then used to develop antivenom.
It's Victorian medicine. If you're ready, Paul.
Snakebite is one of the world's most neglected diseases. But here in Liverpool, scientists think they're on the brink of changing that.
It's really in the last 15 years or so that there's been really major changes in how we actually approach treating snakebite.
Inside one of Europe's largest collections of venomous snakes, researchers are studying exactly how different venoms attack the body. Some shut down breathing, others destroy muscle, and some work by stop blood clotting, causing fatal internal bleeding. Understanding these toxins is leading to entirely new treatments.
What we're trying to do really is understand, first of all, venom effects, and then look at how antibodies, immune responses, or drugs can treat those venom effects, ultimately humans, and then how do we deliver those treatments to those humans over time?
The team in Liverpool is developing a simple pill made from existing medicines that can be given to patients where the snake attack takes place. It works by blocking the venom before it causes devastating tissue damage and internal bleeding.
So these are synthetic chemicals, essentially, just like paracetamol. What we're trying to do with research nowadays, whether it be with monoclonal antibodies or nanobodies that are being produced, or small molecule drugs, these can be produced synthetically. So we can make them in the lab, we can make them very consistent.
Some 600 miles away in Copenhagen, another team is tackling the same problem, but from a different direction. Instead of using horses, they're growing their own human-compatible antibodies in the laboratory. The treatment has already shown promising results against 17 of Africa's deadliest snakes.
Our mixture of antibodies work better than the existing antivenom on the market. it was more effective and it had broader coverage when it came to snake species.
Scaling up production is now the next challenge.
We are producing antivenom. It's something we know can be achieved.
A disease that has been neglected for decades. A treatment that has barely changed in more than 100 years. Now, 2 scientific breakthroughs could finally give hope to millions.
I do believe over the years we could save hundreds of thousands of lives.
Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Now, lab-grown food could be sold in the UK as early as next year. British scientists have been leading the way in experiments, but the competition is fierce, as Victoria Seabrook explains.
There's a global race to make the foods of the future. Foods that won't be grown in fields, but which will be made in a lab like this one.
As extreme weather and conflict disrupt the flow of food and fertiliser, alternatives produced in a lab could offer a huge prize. They'd require far less land and water and could be made anywhere in the world. Sky News was given exclusive access to 2 new products entering public trials at Oxford Brookes University: cocoa butter and palm oil substitutes made using yeast, much like yeast is used to brew beer. The UK leads in this science, but soaring energy costs threaten to push these innovators abroad.
We're paying some of the highest fees across Europe, so we also look at energy and where we might be able to go for that. For example, I think Sweden and Finland are considerably lower on the energy costs. So it's a balance of feedstock access, energy costs and regulations for us in terms of where we end up.
But how do the products stand up to the taste test?
Looks like a chip, tastes like a chip. To be honest, it's hard really to tell much difference between them. So it would be interesting to know which one contained the alternative oil, or maybe 2 of them.
But the competition to develop these novel foods is heating up as China enters the fray, industrialising at pace in its quest for food security.
China is looking to scale, and we know from what we've seen in solar and EV that they can scale remarkably quickly. So we believe that if the UK doesn't act, that there is a material risk that, despite being leading in the science, that we again aren't able to build out our own domestic industries. However, I think there's also an opportunity in China scaling if it brings down the cost curves faster.
The government says it's trying to bring down energy prices and fast-track approvals of novel foods. If it doesn't, Britain's head start may go to waste. Victoria Seabrook, Sky News.
OK, let's get your latest weather now.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, it's cooler for most and more unsettled, and there's no significant rain expected over England and Wales. Early cloud over East Anglia and the southeast will clear during the morning, leaving southern Britain mostly dry and sunny, but there may be the odd coastal shower. And then elsewhere, many places will stay dry with sunny spells, but showers will develop fairly widely, some heavy and thundery. It'll be cool in the north, near average elsewhere. And then Shetland may see some more general rain a bit later, but expect little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Jackie's here with all the sport, keeping me company in the studio today.
We're going to talk FIFA again a bit more because there's been a development in the last few minutes. The Asian Confederation has joined up with UEFA to say no. Also, we'll be talking about Newcastle a little bit and West Ham too.
Show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right, i.e. fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch way. Right, we're going to get in. Right, get in. Get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent. Sky News has been given exclusive data. We combine traditional reporting with advanced analysis of satellite images, social media, and other open source information.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
OK, Jack is here with all the sport. So where we stand is that Gianni Infantino, he's saying the World Cup isn't for sale?
He said it's not for sale. FIFA have come out overnight. This is in response to the news that was put out there in the week, where it was uncovered by journalists, actually, that they're going to sell off 20% stake in their competitions, including the World Cup. He said, no one is selling football. We would never do that. And then blame the media for disrupting a planned consultation. Well, it did not look like that on the face of it. So UEFA have come out and said, absolutely not, this is not happening, and we're going to boycott all your competitions. All of them. We will not play in your World Cup. So imagine, you know, World Cup with no France, no Spain, no England, no Germany. Kind of unthinkable. CONCACAF, the North American and Central American Confederation, said, no, we don't agree either. We will not vote for this. They stopped short of a boycott threat, but said no. In the last half an hour, the Asian Confederation, who were also making negative noises yesterday, have come out and said AFC, the Asian Confederation of Football, stands in solidarity with UEFA and CONCACAF. The AFC calls on FIFA to review its governance and decision-making. The fact that it's reached a point where the real possibility of a FIFA World Cup boycott has entered public discourse should concern everyone who cares about football. And that's right. That's absolutely right. You've just basically put a little hand grenade in and blown it all apart. And yes, the World Cup would still continue, but it would not be the same. It would be like the boycotts of the Olympics in the 80s when, you know, the USA decided not to go to Moscow and then vice versa. I mean, this has not happened since those days. So this is not going to go through because there are too many votes now in the no category that this will not go through. So that begs the question, what now for Infantino? Does he have to go?
Well, he's going to have to roll back on all of this.
This was his decision. This is like the Americanisation of football. It was a very successful World Cup commercially. A lot of the fans would say, actually, you took it out of our price bracket, but they made $12 billion. That is the most they have ever made by a long chalk in a World Cup. They have that money sloshing around to divide up amongst all their member organisations if they want to. It's a non-profit organisation, so it is meant to develop football across the world. They don't actually need this further investment. And what will that mean for football going forward? Will it mean more drinks breaks? Will it mean longer half times? Will it mean less tickets for fans and more tickets for corporates? What other changes could they possibly make to the game? And people have just said no. Enough is enough. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what the comeback is today. The vote is supposed to be September the 19th. Take this money or don't take this money. But it's, you know, he's sidelined the whole process of going to all of the member associations and saying, what do you think, before putting it in the public domain. He's just gone, we want to do this, vote, don't vote.
Civil war, I call it. Right.
Yes. It's very interesting politically.
Can we squeeze anything else in?
Well, also, you know, Newcastle yesterday.
Challenging time.
What a shock! Yeah. What a difficult season they possibly have got ahead, or not, if it all works out. Eddie Howe will no longer be there, having built up that team, having developed players, having got them to the Champions League twice, having won their first trophy in 70 years. He's gone. It's been reported that Matthias Jaissler is expected to succeed him. He's obviously never been in the Premier League, but he's coming from Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia, where he's won back-to-back Champions League, Asian Champions Leagues, so very different. It's possible that Bruno Guimaraes is still being linked to Arsenal and may go, although he is due back in training, so this is a very difficult situation.
Awkward.
When you are being linked with the move away. So many good players have left, it's difficult. And we're also hearing this morning that, as far as West Ham is concerned, Amanda Staveley, who was linked with Newcastle, has now got the funds needed to buy a 25% stake in West Ham.
Change
so more
ahead.
on that when we get it. Yeah.
Jackie, thank you. Thanks for the company too. That's all from me today. Going to hand over to Sean Fletcher. Thanks for your company.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.